Do I feel like we're ready?
Yeah.
Let's
do it.
Good to go?
Let's do it, man.
All right, cool. All right, everybody. Well, welcome to the third episode of the Dream Job podcast. My name is Riley Warren. I'm joined here by my co-host, Shannon Jacobs, and we've got an excellent guest for you guys today. Pleased to welcome the Director of Percussion at Byron Nelson High School and author of Firm Foundations for the Beginning Percussionist, Mr. John Bingaman. Welcome to the show.
Cool. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
We're excited to have you, John. We really are.
Yeah, super stoked. Known you for quite a while now. I think I've known you about 10, 11 years back when you were at John Horn. And
That's right.
I was teching at Vandergrift down there, and we'd see each other at Lone Star.
That's
and
right.
Getting to
Yeah.
watch your groups and all the crazy things that you guys were doing back then, and
Man.
all the way to now, everything, all the great things you're doing with Byron Nelson and your book, obviously, and probably the most crowning achievement is your commissionership of the Gridiron Football Fantasy League.
I'm glad that you're recognizing that publicly. That a lot of people don't know about that, but that's up there.
Yeah,
It's up there.
With kind of everything.
That's an exclusive group to be a part of, and I'm happy that I was finally asked. Although I hate to say it, my first question for you is, do you regret letting me join after I won in my first year? Talk about that.
Competition is always a good thing. Iron sharpens iron.
That's right.
And so, yeah, I'll take the championship back again this year.
Yeah.
Plus, if I won it every year, no one would be in it. So I have to balance that a little bit.
That's good. That's good. Well, that's always fun, and that's it's just one of many examples of, we talk a lot about on this podcast already, just ways to keep it light and, find things in life to enjoy outside of, our jobs, which can be very strenuous and also very rewarding. So
Absolutely.
I don't know that I enjoy the fantasy football league. About 4 weeks in, something implodes on my team.
Yeah.
It starts off really solid, and then
yeah, the Blue Ninjas.
Then I get mad, and I stop paying attention to it,
Yeah.
and it's it trails off in a very quiet death.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad.
I'm sorry to see that happen to you
Dang.
so recently. Maybe this will be your year.
Maybe
This will be the one. The thing that started getting me the last few years, I've noticed a lot, is you can't handicap it like you used to. And what I mean by that is, like, you have the number 1 running back, and you play them against the number 32 defense,
Right.
rushing defense, and they score 2 points.
Yeah.
And then you sit them against an historically staunch defense, run defense, and they score 40.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And it doesn't make any sense anymore.
There's no way.
It used to make sense.
Yeah, at some point down the line. But anyways, we're here to talk about a lot of things. We could talk for hours
Why
about
not?
fantasy football. There's no rules here. So, but anyways, we're super excited to have you on, and you're really well known in the percussion community, not only as a great teacher and mentor to students, but your lines have always been really, really excellent and performed at a high level. And then I think, especially with the release of your book, you're becoming more and more known, especially with all the clinics you've been doing at Midwest and TMEA, about your beginner pedagogy.
Yeah.
And so I think those are all things that we're going to talk about, while we have you on. But I just want to give you the chance to kind of explain to me and Shannon and our viewers, what's your journey in percussion? Where are you from? I know you're Louisiana native, right? So talk about your upbringing and how did you get from there to where you're at now?
Well, sure. It's funny. I had an interesting path. Could be a little surprising. I'm originally from West Monroe, Louisiana, where the Duck Dynasty guys are from.
Oh wow!
So right.
Shout out Duck Dynasty.
Duck Dynasty. Yeah, there you go. But I spent some time in my elementary and middle school years living in Shreveport with my grandparents, and I was like 5 years old. I have a very, in Louisiana, you have a late birthday or whatever. So December, you could be born up until December 31st and be in that class. So I graduated high school as a 17-year-old and started college as a 17-year-old. So I'm like 5 years old. I'm going into first grade or something. And my grandmother knows this lady that has this group, and the group is it's like met at the Y, and mostly it was like girls who twirl batons and stuff. Yeah. But then there was this just drum section. And you could and they did parades and they did these exhibitions in these gymnasiums and stuff, right? And it was very interesting because you just show up and they go, okay, you stand here. And you start out with cymbals or something, and it's just these guys. And what I mean, it's crazy. I was 5 years old, but standing 3 feet from me is the section leader for the Booker T. Washington drumline. Down the street, right? It's very show bandish. Yeah. But these guys are 18, 17 years old, what I'm saying? And that's when you you learn how to listen. You know, you learn how to, there was no music, there was no nothing. They would do, you play right there. And when no, man, that's not right. It's like, and so you're kind of left to like, okay, fend for yourself.
Yeah.
You figure it out, And so pretty soon, I'd moved up to tenor drum. Oh, this guy, eventually I'm playing snare drum, like right 5th grade or so.
Cool.
And then we went all over. We would go do like homecomings at Grambling State University and things like that, which is where my mom worked, by the way. So I was around that type of band program all the way growing up.
Cool.
When I went to middle school, in Shreveport, and there was a band program there. And I sort of like learned how to read music just off the cuff in a band rehearsal. Like I just sort of went, oh, okay. And we started doing it. And my band director at the time was a guy named George Hancock. And he was kind of a jazzer guy, but he also could play in the Shreveport Symphony too. Mm-hmm. So he was very all around. He gave me a chance to just kind of like do my thing. When I he would let me like solo on a chart. We play some pop chart or something like that. I still wasn't very learned though. Like I didn't take private lessons. I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I
thought
I knew. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was all raw. I didn't really know anything, and I did a lot of stuff like incorrectly. Fast forward just a little bit. 9th grade, I moved back to West Monroe, and I go to the West Monroe High School Band, which is one of the best band programs in Louisiana. Dr. Michael Spears was my head director. And we didn't have a percussion instructor. They didn't, it was Louisiana. There was no percussion instruction. So nothing even resembling the Texas system. Right.
Sure.
But what they did have were some good players. They had some really good players, guys that just kind of figured it out, which I credit a lot of that. Like I've had some situations where I had to sort of figure some things out.
Sure.
And I figured out in 9th grade that like, I really don't know. But then I set out to start to figure it out. And start to really understand what I was doing. And I think it was like my sophomore year, I decided to start taking private lessons. And I don't know if you know a guy named Aaron Guidry, if you've ever heard that name.
Composer, arranger.
He does Cirque du Soleil in
Ronald
Vegas.
Reagan High School.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
West Monroe, Louisiana.
Wow.
He graduated from high school the year before I went to West Monroe High School.
No way.
And
crazy small world.
Crazy small world. So I started taking from Aaron like the end of my sophomore year. I'm still like going all this time. I've never taken any private lessons. And he comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, look, man, you let me teach you. We could do. I want to teach you. I want to show you how to do like some stuff."
Yeah.
And that really helped take me to another level. He also went to, at the time, it was Northeast Louisiana University.
Yeah.
Now it's the University of Louisiana Monroe. He graduated from there the next year I went there.
Wow.
I decided like my senior year of high school that I was like, I want to go into music. I was going to do, business and all that stuff before that. I was a good student, did all that stuff. I also ran track at the time. I had a full track scholarship to college at the time too.
Nice.
So I did music and track, and only did the track for a year though, because it was like a lot. You know? And so I went through, Mr. Larry Anderson was my college percussion instructor there. And I'll tell you what, ULM did a lot of great things for me. I got a lot of opportunities there.
Yeah.
It's one of those schools where, yes, I had to be in this ensemble and that ensemble and this ensemble every year, because that's part of your scholarship. And there's just not enough people to be like, no, I've done my year of marching band.
Right.
Well, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Everybody's in this and that all the time. And I did jazz band for all 5 years, because it's a music ed degree. It's literally on paper as a 5-year degree.
Yeah.
I graduated with 192 hours.
Sheesh. That's a whole nother podcast, is the crime of public education.
The double major, double major that is education and music.
Oh, wow. I see
it's,
how you're saying.
right. It's like basically a double major.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. And so
you're basically a performance major at most 4-year universities, and then you do all these other ed classes on top of it. You know what I mean?
It is, man. It's
wild.
Thing. I also got a chance to play for the Monroe Symphony Orchestra while I was there. Like, my percussion instructor, he was the timpanist, and he supplied the section with like players. There was a couple other section players that were like regular guys, but then I got to sub. So for like 4 or 5 years, I got some great experience.
That's cool.
Doing that.
Nice.
And I was going to go get my master's. And then honestly, I think it was Aaron I talked to, he asked me, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I really want to be a percussion instructor in the Texas area. I said, in the North Texas area mainly. I said, but anywhere, because I knew that was a job. And I was like, I figured out I wanted to do that. And I didn't really know anyone over here or anything. He was like, well, you don't need to go do all this master's and stuff to do that. Just go try to do it. So, man, I put in for some jobs and everything. And there's a funny story. I talked to this guy in Houston and got offered this job over the phone. It was a 5A high school, which was at the time what we have 6A now.
Right. Yeah.
It was
the biggest.
Yeah. There was nothing wrong with it. And I don't know what it was, man. Something inside was just like, no, don't do it. I had interviewed with Allen High School early in the summer, but it wasn't a full-time position. And I was really leery of making the move and doing all that stuff without it being a full-time job with benefits and all that stuff. Because I wasn't afraid to come over by myself, but also I wanted to be a position that I felt like I could maintain myself. And man, I turned that job down in Houston, and right at the very end, I got the call back from a guy named Dave Cook, who was ended up being kind of a mentor of mine. Yeah. And he was like, hey, some things have changed. We want to hire you at Allen. And that was my first job.
That's incredible.
So I went to Allen. Yeah, it was crazy.
Isn't that amazing how that works? And I don't know, I should do a really quick book shout out, because what you just explained is what Matthew McConaughey explains in his new book called Green Lights.
Whoa.
And the whole thing is about the way he perceives life as red lights, yellow lights, green lights, and that's almost like you had this feeling, and as soon as you kind of went with your gut and you just said, I'm just going to go for it, this green light happened for you.
It was.
You know what I mean? And I just think that's really cool.
And it's weird because your decision on the surface doesn't seem to make any sense. Right. I distinctly remember some of my friends were kind of irritated with me, wait a minute, you got a job offer, you didn't take it? What's wrong with you? And I was like, man, I just can't explain it. It just doesn't feel like the right thing. And I had no inkling of this Allen thing coming open. So, man, Allen High School is where I'm staying at this guy Dave's house in Plano for my first week. I didn't have anywhere to stay. We were at camp, man. We were at camp, and we're
that's kind of like when I started here at Forney. Me and Shannon hanging out. This guy let me chill at his crib and get the thing off the ground before I moved up here. So
it's crazy, man. It's awesome. Crazy. And so yeah, man, that's where I cut my teeth, as they say, in terms of I learned I had to be a band director and a percussion instructor. So I had a band. I took to UIL every year. All 6 years I was in Allen.
Wow.
I took a band to UIL, and it was a freshman center, 3 middle schools. So I'm taking care of 3 middle schools, a freshman center, and the high school.
Wow.
And so, yeah, back then I was 22, 23. I could do anything, right? Your low
stamina.
Your low 20s, you can do anything.
You're invincible.
Yes. And
I say that as someone exiting my 20s.
Yeah, right.
Now,
yeah, man. Enjoy it, man, while you can, man.
Oh, it's like an hourglass. It's the last few beads are right there. I can see them. It's about to. Yeah, we're there. But.
And so I did that, man. And I you know what? When I look back on it, a lot of those, it was some West Texas band directors. Anthony Gibson was from the West Texas area. He was at.
He's a friend of our program. He comes out here.
Yeah, man.
Quite often.
He was there, and he brought his entire staff to Allen with him, except for percussion. And that's how I got the job. And Dave Cook was the percussion instructor, but he wanted to move over to the orchestra side, elementary and eventually orchestra. He was an older gentleman, and he just kind of looking to do something else.
Yeah.
And so, man, I was there. I learned a lot about band. Those old band directors beat up on me, man, and they taught me the ways of all this stuff. I had to learn how to pick a UIL program, and I had to learn how to do a band, in addition to figuring out this percussion thing. But I asked questions and stuff. I asked a lot of questions, and some things just made sense to me, but I did, and I picked the things that I wanted to value. I think that's where I shaped a lot of things I wanted to value. And at some point, I decided, okay, I think I'm ready to kind of do something else. I'm ready to do something, but I'm not sure that can be accomplished here. Not because of not the students or anything. It was just that situation. It was a huge band program. Did the Roseboro Parade and all this stuff, and that's when I went to John Horn High School. And another weird kind of thing like that is I was telling my wife then. I was like, I had borrowed a marimba from the guy at John Horn, Todd Burke, head director, who I knew from back home in Louisiana too. He had been in the Louisiana Tech area. He did some stuff, grad work at NLU, And I like borrowed a marimba, a rosewood marimba, because we had no rosewood marimbas at Allen. We did this percussion concert, and I borrowed all these rosewood marimbas from people. And when I brought it back, I was talking to him, and like, I just got this great impression of the school. And I was like, man, I came back and I remember telling Alicia, I was like, hey, I think it would be nice that horn program looks like it could be like, do something, right?
Yeah.
And she was like, well, is it open? I was like, nah. And the percussion instructor was super cool at the time. He made no indication that he was leaving. There was no hints, no nothing. He seemed like he was 100% like there. And literally the next morning after I said that, he called me. He was like, hey man, dude told me he's going to do something else. You want his job? And I was like, oh. Wow. I was like, man. So it was crazy, man. It's like the second time.
I feel like that's 2 times that something like that happened to you. I feel like we're doing this interview with John, and something's gonna happen to us tomorrow. Oh, yeah, it's crazy. Like you're bringing the good juju.
Yeah, man, I hope so, man.
Yeah,
I hope so, man. And the rest is history with that program. I was there for 8 years, and man, Todd let me kind of do my thing, and I was able to cultivate a program, and kind of shape it in the way I wanted to, and it was some great students, a great community, and everything, and after that time there, I moved on with Jed Weeks. I got a call from him, and I went out to Byron Nelson and Trophy Club, and man, the rest is history. I've been there for 8 years. Wow. And been able to do some fantastic things with that community and those kids and those people, and it's been fantastic. Northwest ISD is great, and some great opportunities there, and I mean, here I am, man. So, I blink
and
my
now
eyes.
You're on the Dream Job podcast.
I mean, I'm telling you, man.
Things are going good for you.
They're looking up.
They're looking up, for sure. And that's awesome, man. It's so cool to hear your humble beginnings, Louisiana. And that's a perspective I think that is very rarely talked about, or very rarely leads to doing what you're doing now, But I think that's so important that we provide those perspectives, because you never know who's listening to this. Like you could have that same 5 to 10-year-old kid find this somewhere on the internet and be like, oh, I'm in a band like that, but I never thought I could. But this guy John Bingaman's doing it. You know what I mean? Like,
man.
I think that's super cool.
Well, it's interesting, because as I got into the business, I would talk to people, and I talked to so many guys that were like, yeah, I went to Mesquite High School, or I went to Garland, or I went to Vandergrift, or I went to this, and it's like they were raised in the systems that we are using.
Yep.
I had no percussion instructor my entire time through high school or middle school or any of that stuff, and I think that helped me. I mean, obviously the inexperience of that presented some challenges, but it also gave me a clean slate to kind of work from. And I think that's how I was able to develop some of the things that what I just thought was right without influences, but I did ask a lot of questions. I did seek out information, which I think that's the key, man. I had so many people that helped me when I started. Yeah. I would just ask questions a lot. So.
Yeah, I think the cool thing about the North Texas percussion community is everyone's pretty cool. All you gotta do is ask. If you ask it, you'll get an answer. No one's secretive about that. I've heard certain pockets of teaching where it's not the way. Everything has a kind of playing it close to the vest, and they don't want to share what their program does. But everyone in North Texas has always been so giving. If you just ask, hey, how do you guys do this, or what are you guys doing? And everyone's feels free to talk and share. And I think the bouncing of ideas is what makes this place pretty special and really a high level, because everyone's just bouncing ideas off each other.
Yeah. I definitely think so, man. And I think the level, just the competition, you got those monster programs out there like Forney High School that are
never heard of them.
Yeah, that you got to come ready, or you're gonna you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's what I've experienced my entire time in the North Texas area. Is there's such a high level, and it just brings nothing but respect and also just a preparedness. You want to be ready.
For sure. I think also not only is it super competitive up here, but there's also a million ways to skin a cat. And so you don't have to do what you envision your program to be doesn't have to be what the program next door to you is really successful at. You know what I mean? You could have a successful program that is super into the percussion ensemble thing, and that's your thing. thing, or you could have a program that's super into the indoor thing, and that's your thing, or solos, or you really go all out every year for like Lone Star Drumline and HEB Drumline and all that stuff. And I just think that's cool that we have this community. It's not really a set in stone way to be successful. We kind of define success for our own programs.
And I think people are really respectful of each other and what they do.
Yeah.
I don't think people necessarily care how you do it. Just they just recognize if it's how it's if it's being done, the level that you're doing it. So
yeah, 100%. So talk about at what point did you did all the beginner pedagogy kind of come into play, and you had this motivation and drive to get your ideas out there? Because you've been known as a great beginner percussion educator for a long time, but your book is only 3-4 years old now.
Yeah. I mean,
probably in your head, officially,
right.
It's been there for years, right? Yeah. But it's finally out. So talk about that.
Well, man, I'll talk a little bit about overall philosophy of that. There's definitely, I think, some divided philosophies with that. There's definitely people that I think it's like, man, let's get the kids in, let's get them kind of playing, keep them interested,
right?
And then later on they'll figure it out. We'll go at them hard and they'll achieve it. And there's people that can do it that way.
Yeah.
I just the way my brain works, I want to control the trajectory immediately. I want to control their philosophies, how they hear music, how their standards, the way they prepare music immediately.
Yeah.
And I just believe that higher starting points yield higher finishing points,
Yep.
And you see it in sports all the time, man. You can see it, when you see this influx of people that can jump higher, run faster. All you have to do is look back at the youth levels about 5 years ago, and they were breaking those youth records. Yeah. It's all the same, right? But people don't see it that way because nobody talks about that.
Yeah.
And so I decided very early in my career that I wanted to be the type of person that had these beginner kids that could just do it the right way from the beginning. Mm-hmm. They kind of went about things the right way, and it's not going to be perfect, but that's the way I chose to do it.
Yeah.
With the pedagogy stuff, I found myself writing stuff on the board all the time.
Yeah.
When I needed to teach something, there's things in the book and this is lines and stuff. And it was always okay, well, yes, this is the new rhythm, but let me really explain this, or this is how you really want to approach that. And I started just writing my own stuff and things. Okay, I like that. So, man, I wish it was just somewhere where it would save me so much time if it was just here.
Yeah.
And also I felt like a lot of times you would get to a concept and there would be so many concept wrapped up into it. For me, I think the one for me that really changed me was bucks. And you're going along, you're playing all this single-heighted stuff.
Yep.
And all of a sudden it's not a downstroke, it's not a tap, it's not an upstroke, it's bucks.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff.
What is a buck?
There's a lot of stuff in there, man.
Yeah. Are we talking, a deer? Are we talking money? What is it?
Right.
A rudiment? What? I have no idea. I'm a sixth grader. Seriously, I'm a sixth grader thinking, what is a buck?
What is this, man?
This guy who I see, every week or every day maybe, is telling me to play bucks. Or a diddle. Now
all of a sudden you want me to leave my stick down here.
Yeah.
But the whole year you've been yelling at me because it wasn't up here.
Yeah.
And it's so I wanted to cultivate something that made that process more natural for the student. Mm-hmm. Sort of introduce little shades of it here and there. Okay, now this is a downstroke. Okay, now this is how you do this upstroke. This is how you lift. And then all of a sudden now I put all those things together, and now they can just play bucks because they have all these components within it. And so I wanted to make the learning process more natural for myself and the students. I wanted the students to feel oh yeah, why don't you just do this next? I want them to I want it to be their idea.
Yeah.
Almost, because that's what seems natural to do next, right?
Progression.
Just do this. Couldn't you just do that?
Yeah.
Yes, Billy. That's what you do next. And so that's
William, if you will.
William. And so that was the motivation for that. And that's kind of philosophically where I come from with the beginner pedagogy thing. And even to this day, I'm always trying to get to a higher level with those young kids in every facet, physically, musically, coordination-wise, perceptionally. How do they conceptualize music? What's their level of reading really? I'm always trying to break through those barriers.
Well, there's a couple things I want to come back to in what you just talked about, but you just led perfectly to one of the questions I wanted to ask you, which is, as someone who has written a whole beginner percussion book, and I know it's probably not perfect every year with every student, but like describe for us like your ideal like end of 6th grade year beginner percussionist. Like they just finished 6th grade year, they're going on to 7th grade. What skill sets does that student possess? Like just give us some like, how would you describe that student?
Okay, so from a technique standpoint, you want them to have a good grip. It doesn't
firm grip, if you will. I'm sorry, I won't do that anymore.
We gotta use some drops, man.
Yeah, we gotta pace it out. We can't have everything. The podcast, we're so thankful to have you on, but we're still kind of climbing this ladder. So by like season 2, 3, we're gonna have all this stuff out here. There's gonna be, we're gonna have a sideshow person making jokes, Tonight Show style. We're gonna have a house band. It's gonna be awesome.
Cue cards.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back.
Advertisements.
When we get there, we'll have you back.
I'm ready.
I'm sorry. Keep going.
And so I want them to have a good grip, and functionally, like their fulcrum is very functional. It doesn't slip. They have acclimation with their fingers, and they have a good sense of control.
Yeah.
The skills that you want them to have decent speed, but the more and more I do it, the more it's like, for me, it's not about playing 8 on a hand at 200.
Yeah.
It's more about like being able to utilize the speed in a way that's usable. Like there's a difference between 8 on a hand speed at full extension and like, small space speed where it's that kind of control, that kind of thing like that. You want them to be able to play good diddles, and you want them to at least, they don't have to be playing every flam rudiment, but if they see a flam, they know what it is. If they see a drag, they probably understand what that is. And I want them to be very rhythmically precise. They need to be able to play with a metronome, tap their toe. I do think the toe tap is very important.
Yeah.
Not just from a coordination standpoint, but going back to that word conceptually, right? I think it's very important with stickings as well. Right, left, left, right, left, left, right, left, left. Could very well be right, left, left, right, left in a child's mind without a foot tap.
Yes.
Right? And so all they're doing is tricking themselves to do it in a way that makes you think they can do it, but they really can't conceptualize right, left, right, left. They really can't conceptualize that.
Yeah.
And I try to find ways to sniff that out and make sure they know it, right?
It's like, nope, that's not, nope. I know you think you're doing it, but it's not really quite. It's not, you want to leave them with as much tools where beyond a shadow of a doubt that when they go home, they're doing it the way that you want them to do it.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
That's right. And that's why I asked so many questions. We could talk about that in a minute, but I always ask the class, well, like who, is that right? Or could you rate that on 1 to 10,
Nice.
And if a kid
But if you create that environment, it's okay.
If
it's
totally
healthy,
fine.
If that's what you go from the very beginning, and it's not like, oh, I'm mad today, so all of a sudden I'm gonna make my kids, pit them against each other. That's one thing. But if that's part of your culture,
100%.
Then
it's funny, it's the student teachers that I always get that comment from. I've had like student teachers a lot. The last 3 or 4 years, I've had like one every semester. And they always say the same. They're like, man, I can't believe the kids can just like talk so openly about like each other, but it's like not negative.
Yeah.
And it's like, if they can't tell you what's right, they can't practice it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if they can't tell you what sounds right, and I want them to be able to go back to like what I want them to be able to do. At the end of the year, they play a snare solo that has a lot of these components in it. They can play accented tap patterns. They can be 8th notes or 16th notes. They can play some diddles. They can play some flams, and they can play in time.
Yeah.
From a mallet standpoint, yes, I want them to know all 12 of their major scales. Sometimes, just for different kids, they might know 9 of them or something. But most of the times they know all 12, and they can read the musical alphabet. And I want the kids to be able to read scale-wise motion. I want them to be able to read it relationally and not just
stepwise versus skipwise.
Yeah.
Motion, like that's what I call it in my classes. I'll ask the class, are we moving up by step or are we moving up by skip?
Yeah.
Are there skips? And in most beginner literacy that's out there, there's nothing more than just either one, you're skipping over a third maybe, or maybe a fourth, maybe.
Yeah, boom, boom.
Yeah.
At the most of the times it's this. If they're still trying to go, every good boy. Oh,
yeah.
Like they're still trying to identify every note. That's the thing. If they get out of 6th grade and they're still trying to do that follows them. And why is that so important? Because then when you do hand them the region music, they hate it because it's so tedious.
Yep. Yeah.
But if they can sort of like, oh, da 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 da. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
They don't hate it.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we yeah, man, we just shove that region music down their throats and they hate it. Every kid doesn't hate it.
No.
Yeah.
You know, like it's going to be tedious because of the standard and you're trying to teach them how to do a standard, but like it should be like sort of readable to them.
Yeah.
And if it is, they will accept it in a totally different way.
Yeah.
And then, you know, rhythmically, I do want them to be able to play triplets and 16th notes and be able to go between 16ths and 8ths and triplets. And then, of course, you want them to get to some sixlets to some extent. I hope that like kind of covers it.
That's great. I think I have a couple other questions about maybe some other things, but just going back to the mallet literacy stuff a little bit, you know, I kind of think of it like this, and I'll kind of pose this to my students, like, you know, I want you to be able to read the music just like you would read English. You know, just like you learn from kindergarten on, you know, I'm reading the quick brown fox jumped over the hill or whatever. And I'll write that on the board for them. And I'm like, I'm not trying to patronize y'all, although sometimes I definitely am. But I'm like, I'm not trying to patronize y'all, but what if I wrote this on the board and I was like, you know, and I had to sound out each word, you know, quick. Okay, that's a quote. You know what I mean? That's like what you see students doing with notes sometimes, right? Where they see, okay, that's a bottom line. Okay, that's every E. Okay, cool. That's a G. You know what I mean? That's not where we want them to be.
Yeah.
You know, we want them to be able to see the patterns. We want them to be able to recognize the motion and the skips and the steps and where they are in the staff, and have, you know, not at the same level that they speak whatever language they speak, right? But to the point where they can see the pattern and kind of figure it out on their own.
Absolutely. And man, you know, I see, you know, on some of those things, I do that at Firm Foundations. It's like, there's the one-step reading. The first thing I teach them is like, it's literally one-step reading. So they'll have a line of like, say, D's, and then it just moves up one step, and the rest of the line is an E. And it seems so simple, but when you're asking them to do it in an honest way, it's still, you'd be surprised. You know, you start to really see what they don't know or what they don't understand. Eventually they get it. And I also have a section there on shapes where I just show them like up 3 or down 3 or up triangle, down triangle.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And so I'll like show them the first note and go up 3. Okay, it's F, and they'll go F, G, A, you know, like, and they start to understand those shapes. And those reading shapes really help a lot too. Start going to reading words instead of individual letters.
Right.
You know, same concept you're
Sentences.
talking about. Yeah. Which turn into sentences.
Do you have any 12-tone serialism in your beginning book?
Yeah, the kids do a tone row at the beginning of every class. And then they're required to read it, pass it around and read it. And improvise over it.
You should just do that as a prank one day. Like, just give it to them and just see what happens. That'd be pretty funny. No, I'm just kidding. So that's, I think that's really, you know, we so many of us just spend so much time, like you said, you know, 8s at 200, you know, and like, I want my kids to have good chops. You know, I want them to be excited about, can we go faster? Can we go fast? You know, they like that. But at a certain point, you know, when you start to translate that to changing the hand speed and, you know, changing the heights at a level that they're going to need to be able to do, I always put it in the frame of like, you know, when you're in 7th grade, when, you know, what's next for them? They're about to be in band, like they're about to be in a full band, you know, whether we like it or not. Our 7th graders are playing in UIL concerts, you know, and that's a big jump. And so I'm always trying to put that in context for them. But what else? That's a great kind of thorough analysis on your, you know, the drumming and the keyboard skills, but do you do like any accessory work in the beginner year?
So what I do is, you know, first of all, I do a percussion ensemble. At the very least, I do a percussion ensemble at Christmas time. Cool. And I do the same whenever I have this Carol the Bells arrangement that I do. And it's really cool. And then, of course, there's a band piece. Depending on your middle school, some middle schools just like to do these like kind of
lines, you know?
Or like demonstrate,
feature.
almost like a class feature demonstration concert thing. Some like, you know, like at my wife's school, we're doing all out pieces. You know what I mean? You're like playing a whole like piece. Well, at that point, I take those opportunities to teach the accessories and talk about it. And at the end of the year, they do a band piece for the spring concert, and
Yeah.
we talk about it even more.
Cool.
And then sometimes I'll get an opportunity to do another percussion ensemble at the end of the year. So I try to use those opportunities. And there's always other things you can do with that. I always have new ideas. I always think about that. That's the kind of stuff I think about all the time. It's like,
Yeah.
man, what if they, we crash cymbals every week, or we did that. I've got some ideas,
Yeah.
where we could do that. But right now, that's what I've done forever.
Yeah.
It's just use those pieces as vehicles to teach that stuff. And I mean, honestly, they you want them to be able to play bass drum,
Yeah.
suspended cymbal, wood
Maybe
block,
some triangle, maybe some tambourine.
I mean, if you get out of those, get the basics right there, you got a pretty good idea. And then some basic setup concepts. But man, a lot of that they have to learn in 7th grade when they're in band.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think sometimes that gets a little over exasperated. Like, oh, these kids don't know how to set up. Well, okay. No, they don't. That's
Yeah.
that's fine. We had to teach them how to play,
Right.
And so it's like, they learn that stuff so fast when they're in it
Yeah.
every day setting up, so it's all good.
And once they're in that full band class, depending on how much you get to actually go to your 7th and 8th graders, how many theater middle schools do you guys
2.
have? 2. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd be curious to know, you're kind of, how do you split that? Because we're moving towards that in our district for sure. But they get into a routine. And I think most really great band directors, wind directors, are able to, bridge that gap between, them to the back of the room with the percussionist and kind of get a routine going with them and communicate with them when you're not always there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the
they
ones
do.
who can't, it's just, they struggle.
Yes.
They struggle with behavior and they struggle with, getting them to listen and all that good stuff. So
What I
that's
always
super
think
important.
I think it's always good too to communicate with your middle school directors. One question I've asked over the years a lot of times is, is the balance of them warming up and setting up.
Yeah.
And I'll ask, and I don't mean it. I'm not being confrontational. I do this. I say, hey, do you want them to set up or warm up?
Yeah.
And all that question does is sort of spur like, wait a minute. Oh.
Yeah.
Like it occurs, okay, they can't do both those things at once. Okay, well, I really want them to set up for the first band piece first, and I'll put it on the board, and then let's have them join the warm-up as soon as they can get there, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes those simple conversations will pave the way for a better experience for those kids.
Absolutely.
Because, that band director has a lot to worry about, and we minimize it sometimes. They're worrying about the whole band.
Yep.
And sometimes if that percussion thing breaks down and you're not there, it can be overwhelming to them. So,
Yeah.
I try to help those processes along sometimes with just simple conversations like that. Like, hey, at what time do you want them to have this, or what do you want, kind of thing, and that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Side question, you just brought it up. When your students do warm up with the middle school bands, do they do the same warm up that the middle school band is doing, or do they play the same scales that they're doing, or do they have like a pad warm up that goes along with it? Well, how do you approach that?
There's a little bit, and I'm getting more extensive with it this year. They play some things that are on their own with it. It's not just, sometimes like you do those scale studies and stuff, they want the percussionist to play the same thing, and some of that stuff can be very beneficial just from like scale patterns, when they do all that stuff. And then the rolling on some of the other stuff is good.
Yeah.
But then there's also a hand component to it, like a pad component. I've actually thought about rewriting all of that stuff, and I just want to sit down and do that at some point. But I do think it can be a missed opportunity, sometimes. The only problem with it is like, when you're not there, there's not the feedback.
Yeah.
It has to be pretty well established for it to be beneficial for them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, potentially could do harm because of
reinforcing bad habits.
Yeah, so it's a tightrope act with that. You don't want them to waste their time, but also you got to be able to. They have to get feedback like the rest of the band is. When the band's playing Remington, they're getting feedback, right?
Yeah.
Like when they're playing all that stuff, they're constantly getting feedback about it.
That's awesome.
Oh, sorry, the click is on.
I was like, what tune is this?
We have to make sure the podcast is in time. It's a percussion podcast. Yeah. Just kidding. So I like we were just talking about, great just overview of your philosophy, and I'm sure we could do hours more. I'm sure you can talk for days about your thoughts on middle school and beginner percussion. So thank you for that.
Yeah, sure.
Great intro. I want to move the conversation a little bit into your high school group and kind of what you've seen. I want to ask about you talk so much about creating a higher ceiling for your beginners and hoping that that translates to the high schoolers. So now you've done it with 2 programs, John Horn and Byron Nelson. Have you seen the payoff of all of those things you implement in your beginner class as you see these kids go through 6 and 7 years of high school percussion?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a big part of where you see it is you start to see in the solo program, because you got to look at what opportunities do you have to develop the student, for the student to develop themselves. And that's through their solos, which my students always play a snare and a mallet solo. Like, I don't give them the choice. They have to play them both. And typically we try to give those out in December or January, and they play in late April or early May, wherever that falls on the calendar. And what you see is in what you were talking about, like, how does it affect it? Well, at the end of their beginner year, if they're able to play a certain level of snare and mallet solo, the level that they could play at the end of 7th grade is now higher too, right? It also gets them, speaking of avenues to develop themselves, I'm trying to get them ready to be able to do region as a 7th grader. Not to necessarily make it, although sometimes some kids do, but just to be able to participate and it not feel like the worst thing in the world. You know what I mean? Like, this is crazy. Because it's not right for certain students in 7th grade, But if they are able to do that, well, now that's another jumping off point as a result of how they did in 6th grade, right? They're able to participate in region. Now you have some kid in 8th grade that did region last year and like phase to the 2nd phase, and they did well. You have a kid that played a pretty aggressive, like I always have them play a pretty aggressive 2 mallet solo in 7th grade. I don't skip the 2 mallet thing to go to the 4 mallet thing. I always have them play like something like, if I have my beefy 2 mallet stuff. I think that's very important.
Cool.
It's like, man, I love Sweet Mexicana just like anybody else, but like, man, there's a component of like, you're not getting the same thing you're getting from playing Marriage of Figaro.
No.
Or one of those Bachs. I just had a student, that one. It's a 4-page 2 mallet solo, man.
Oh, wow.
That kid's ready to play anything on 2 mallets.
Yeah, he gets the region music now, and he's like,
easy.
It is literally a joke for him. You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes those 4 mallet solos don't necessarily do that right away. Now, I do have a program for them to like stepwise up into 4 mallets in 7th grade. For the students that want to. It's more modular.
Okay, cool.
And then in 8th grade, now you're sitting on a student that is ready to play a bona fide 4 mallet solo if they haven't already in 7th grade. They're playing, a bona fide snare solo. And, it depends. It's a large range there, right? Depending on the student. But they're playing something that's going to segue them into high school. And then you're trying to make that.
You can fix it. You go ahead and fix it. We'll edit it. It's just such a big book, There's so many pages.
Right. It is,
concepts.
Right? Hey, man.
Actually, real quick, while we're talking about that,
I
I did want to ask about that because, you were talking about having the kid. Sorry to backtrack, but you were talking about having the kid kind of figure it out for himself with your beginner book, and I was thinking when you're saying that, like, there is so much in there, and I think that. Can maybe scare some people.
Man.
But
I'm glad you asked that.
But I want you to talk about that because to me, when I was reading through that in preparation for this, and when I've read it over, the last couple of years, like, I feel like if I'm a teacher, especially if I'm a teacher who's a wind player, there is so much in there that, like, you don't skip a step.
There's no skipping.
And your most advanced students probably get a kick out of reading a lot of that stuff. So talk about the strategy of that real quick, and then we'll jump back into what we're talking about.
I want to address the size of the book first. One of the things that makes the book sort of bigger is one of the things that I wanted to kind of get rid of is like the warm-ups at the end of the book. And having to like the students constantly have to flip back and forth. It doesn't allow for the warm-ups to be able to progress or change or evolve. So I wanted everything the student needed in the chapter. Well, that means I have to print 2 pages of warm-ups for all of the chapters. That makes the book a lot bigger. Right? I don't have just a couple pages of warm-ups at the end.
Right.
I have them in every chapter, but that allows me to do some very progressive things with that. Man, I will say this, because of the stepwise nature of the book, you could just get it and turn the page. Somebody who's not even a percussion instructor can just get it. that takes a lot of space to do that.
Yeah.
You know, and if you just go, hey, here's some 16th notes. Well, that doesn't take very much space,
No.
you know. But if you're kind of going through like going from this and adding this hand in and doing all these different steps that helps them teach it, yes, it takes space. So where it looks like intimidating,
Right.
when the student is in the book, it's actually the opposite of that.
Yeah.
It's actually like this next step feels so natural,
So
and
logical.
easy, so logical.
There's no big jumps.
Yeah.
You
No.
know, it's everything is very progressive.
That's right, and that takes space.
Yeah.
That takes time to do
Physical
that.
space.
Physical
Yeah.
space to do that. And so what people are actually afraid of is like it's like the opposite of that.
Yeah.
It's not like you're reading Shakespeare. It's just the
Herman
logical.
Melville.
Yeah, man. It's just like the next logical step to everything. So I think that's what I would say to anybody. And I'll say that one of the comments that I've been getting a lot from people is I read it on a thing, social media. Somebody was like posting about the book and asking questions.
Yeah.
And there were like 5 people that were like, yeah, I used it this year. My beginners are better than they've ever been.
Yeah,
They
I
went
saw that
farther than
thread.
they've ever gone.
Yeah.
And it's because I believe it's because of that. Because that's why I wrote the book. I wanted to help people be more successful with the beginners. I wanted me to be able to use it and
Yeah.
be more successful with my beginners.
Yeah.
And
Well, it goes
so-
back to what we're talking about, just sharing. You know, this
Yeah.
community who just wants to share. You know, so maybe someday someone will make a podcast about just sharing great information with great educators. No, wait a second. And then the last thing I want to say, you know, talk about that. We'll go back to your high school stuff. Is, you know, if you're a really experienced percussion educator, you probably don't have to take every single step in your book, or is it designed to do that?
I think it's designed
Okay.
to. I think
enough.
what'll happen is like, okay, there's one thing, you know, there's a couple of things I can think about in the book where it's like, we always talk to the kids about, okay, well, you should be thinking about this when you do this. Like, you should be thinking about 8th notes when you play 16th notes.
Yeah.
Well, there's a process in the book that takes it through that where they have to sort of demonstrate that they are able to do that.
Yeah.
And what you'll find out when you make them go through this process is that they may not be doing that. You're just sort of taking their word for it.
Yeah,
But
smoke
then
and mirrors.
Yes, smoke and mirrors. And then you realize they don't really, that kid and that kid and that kid don't really understand it, but now they do.
Yeah.
And so I use all these steps. I use all of the steps. So it's not necessarily, well, all these steps are for the people that don't really teach percussion.
Right.
And then you can just do the abbreviated stuff. You can skip from here to page, you know,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
like that.
Well, that's really good to know. I'm glad I asked that question because I wasn't sure if that's your intention or.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool.
No. Those steps are 100% for everybody.
Let me
And
ask
that's
this
why it is.
follow-up question, and again, I'm just not trying to poke holes in your book,
No.
but I just want people to know, like, I think a lot of people, when they talk about beginner books, it always comes up like, oh, we never finish this book, or we never get through the whole thing. You know what I mean? Is your book designed to do that, or is it meant to be, you know, ideally you get through this much and you use it to continue on,
Man.
or what?
I love your questions, man. I'm serious.
thanks.
I'm so serious. Like, and that doesn't bother me at all. All these questions about the book, they don't bother me because I can answer them.
Yeah.
Right. That book is not necessarily meant to finish. The book is designed to give every kid, like, if you can do this book, you are ready to move forward into like high school almost, right?
Yeah.
Like, I would say there's 3 units in the book. If you finish the 2nd unit of the book, you're in pretty good shape. There's like 1 chapter past that you really want to get to. 15, I think, is the chapter. And then you get to like the end of that 3rd unit, midway through the 3rd unit, they're doing things like 5-lets, compound meter, but the way it teaches compound meter is in a way that's very digestible. So a lot of times I'll have the next year in 7th grade, if we play something that's compound meter or mixed meter, I'll pull those pages out if we didn't make them to it, or even if we did make it to it,
Yeah.
like I'll pull those pages out.
It's a great resource.
It's a great resource. It's meant to be used with your 7th and 8th graders. It's got all these different things. If they can play all of that stuff and the etudes at the end of the book, it's got all the flam rudiments they're going to ever need to play. It is meant to be continued. So the whole like I didn't finish thing, I understand the idea of it. I do, because I
don't know that there's one beginner book. Like, no one ever says, well, this beginner book I always finish. You know, I've never heard that with any beginner books, really. It's always just like, well, I'm not doing that one because I can't finish it, or there's too much. It's like, well, which one can you? Like, I've never really heard someone like that's not really the goal either.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not about just getting through the whole thing and be like, close the book, all right, cool. You know, we're done, chapter whatever. Like, it's about taking the time and doing it right.
Making sure they really understand it and are really proficient. I have had classes where I didn't get as far, but those kids ended up better.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like they just understood so well and could do so much at a higher level that they ended up panning out better in the end. I mean, sometimes you got to sell your soul to finish those books if that's your goal.
Yeah.
You know, you end up playing 1 or 2 lines per chapter.
Yeah.
You're just brushing over it.
Right.
And if you play the same line enough times, they're playing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they don't know what's happening. I mean,
Yeah.
if you play a line 20 times, the class knows it.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why I've got 11 lines on there. I want to be able to, like I tell the kids, all right, hey, we're going to go through these lines and the test is on Monday, but you don't know which lines I'm going to call.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to do them. And, you know, that works, you know, for me, you know, because they have to be able to count them and do them. So that's what I would say, man, is like the goal is not to finish like that. And if you do finish, more power to you. I think it's great, but that's not what the deal is.
Yeah.
Learning the concept, picking the concept, and actual understanding, and be able to replicate that over and over again is the goal, right? And that's the cool thing about it. It's like, hey, we do this. We have all these lines to do. If you really understand the concept, it doesn't matter, right?
right.
Versus, can you just play line 12 because line 12 is hard, or whatever,
Yes.
you know?
And we've played line 12 all 5 days this week.
Yeah.
And now everybody knows.
Everybody,
it.
yeah, but they may not know how to replicate that later.
No.
When they see it in different contexts. So.
That's right. Absolutely.
Last question on this topic, and then we can absolutely come back and talk more about your book. You teach at 2 feeder middle schools, true middle schools, 6th through 8th.
Yes.
How many kids are in each beginner class?
This year I've got 12 in one, but believe it or not, only like 7 in the other.
Really?
Yeah.
Is there a reason for that, or just coincidence? Or?
It is. It all has to do with like population.
Sure.
You know, how many people are in the overall band program, and I don't choose set numbers. I mean, like for instance, I got 12 in the one class.
Yeah.
And that's because when I did the evaluatory process, the fitting, if you will, I felt that these 12 students could do it.
Yeah.
You know, and the other school, I felt these 7 students could do it. And I think there's something about like having 12 kids or 10 kids or 9 kids or 11 kids that can all do it.
Yeah.
You know, if you pick 17 and 4 of them just can't do it.
Yeah.
Man, it affects that class in a way.
We have been there.
It really affects that class.
Unfortunately.
And here's the thing. Here's what I would tell anybody. I go, man, you only picked 9? Why didn't you pick 12? I've tried to pick the 12. Guess what I end up with at the end of the year?
The 9.
The 9.
Yep.
Yeah.
Only you're 4 chapters behind where you would have been.
If you didn't have those 3.
Yep.
No offense to those kids.
Yeah.
They just maybe should have been in another instrument.
Yep.
You know?
And you rob them potentially from another instrument. I started getting convicted about that. Like when I reached to grab that kid that could have played trumpet, they might have stayed on trumpet.
Yeah.
Now they really wanted to play percussion. And man, one of the things I hate is having to tell some kid or some family that they can't play percussion when they really wanted to.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of kids are open-minded when they come in. There are kids legitimately that are like, yeah, I really want to play percussion, but I'm also interested in the trombone and the trumpet, and they have all these other things, right?
Yeah.
But man, then there's the kids that like, I only want to play percussion. I've only wanted to play percussion since I was in first
A
grade.
drum set.
Man, and they have no coordination, no sense of time. You put on a piece of music and they can't find the time.
Yeah.
They can't find the beat at all. And then you have to tell them. And man, if you reach sometimes, the ones that just don't have the tools to really do it, it can be very detrimental.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if you're just going to end up with the 9, just take the 9.
Just take the 9. Take the ones that you know that can do it.
That's right.
And man, I really just want to jump in and talk about like your beginner process now and what you.
We can come back to
Yeah,
it.
let's come back
Whatever
to
you
it.
want, because I know you want to talk about the high school
Yeah,
thing.
let's get to the high school stuff, and I think we can come back because I think we've taken a lot of stuff. Shannon's implemented a lot of your process.
Oh,
and
we've
what
had
we've
so
done.
So many years of working with you, John,
Man,
and talking. I think we had this conversation in like the Buffalo Wild Wings parking lot about like picking like
Shout out Buffalo Wild Wings.
that one kid that we should have said like no, and then that kid is drugged out of class for a whole year.
For a whole year.
You know, and one of the cool things about John, and I think a lot of people know this, but like his dedication and his sense of value for the beginner evaluation process, and then that beginner year is what culminates in this fantastic book. Is because he's been thinking about it for years.
Oh yeah, man.
Years and years.
Oh yeah,
and years
man.
and years.
Well, what were some of the other titles that you floated? Like what you finally landed on Firm Foundations. Did you have some? That's a really great title, by the way. You got alliteration in there.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, did you have some other ones?
It's firm. It's not too hard.
It's not too hard. It's friendly. It's inviting. Foundation. It's
Foundation.
nice.
Man, I'm embarrassed to say I don't really remember, but I remember that was. It's weird. It's weirdly unsettling when you do have to find a name because you're just like, wait, that sounds dumb.
Right.
You start thinking about everything I thought sounded stupid.
Yeah.
And then I say this by myself, I'm boring, when I put in for a clinic to do a TMEA, I'm always, they always say, oh, find a catchy title. And at the end, I'm like, yeah, sequencing for success.
Yeah.
It's like,
stock.
Right.
But that's what it is.
it's
Yeah.
all, yeah, it's so.
John's not about the flair. He's about getting the content down, right?
The
Do you want these
substance.
diddles to be clean or not? Or do you want a fancy title?
Yeah.
That's it, man. That's it. Oh, and you know what? I cannot leave without saying this.
Sure.
I don't want to draw this out, but you asked me about my beginners. Man, the more I do this, the more I feel like their sustenance or their ability to sustain is a huge indicator. Man, you show me a kid with a really good buzz roll, I'll show you a good player.
Yeah.
You show me a kid with a great 2-mallet roll, I'll show you a decent player. You show me a kid with a great double stroke roll. Sustenance, sustain, if they can sustain well. That's something I really want the kids to be able to do.
Cool.
So I forgot that, and I feel like I should say it. It's like that important.
Yeah.
That goes back to this you talked about conceptually, bucks. It's a concept, but man, a buzz roll, what a concept! Like
The 2-mallet roll.
the 2-mallet.
It's a thing that I'll go on a soapbox about.
Yeah.
I know.
We're losing the roll. We're losing the roll because we don't do that anymore. And especially in the marching percussion idiom, we don't
really play that many
sustain.
2-mallet rolls.
No, actually, there's a big band hold. There's
We're all suspended cymbals
or
runs.
Yeah, so we the ability to sustain a note with good quality is one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of in 7th grade we play 2-mallet solo. We play a 2-mallet solo. I pull that Goldenberg, and you're going to play this. And it looks like a lot of notes, but we need to play this. We need to learn to play this.
Yeah,
and
man.
the kids that can do it, way above the others.
Yeah.
Way above.
It's funny, right? It's just like I'm telling you. It's funny.
They get so excited to play 4-mallets. I'm like, you're going to play 4-mallets like all high school. I promise you.
Promise.
But guess what? You guys are going to play 2-mallet region every year. And if you can't do that, you're going to suffer as a player throughout our program because that's a big part of, moving up the ladder.
And if you play marimba for us in the marching band, guess what? You're going to be playing inner 2-mallets all the time.
Yeah.
You're going to be playing 2-mallets, but with 4-mallets in your hand.
Yes. It's okay. You might wake up one morning and be like, I didn't put these in my hand. I got 4-mallets in my hands.
Right.
So all great stuff, and again, we can come back to the beginner stuff. But let's go back to high school, and you're talking about seeing those things that you implemented at the beginner level translate to your high school students as they get closer to graduating.
So then you get to the point where I think a big transitional point, their last percussion ensemble they played in 8th grade, and then the audition process to enter the high school.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of students they'll reach for what they can get, and you'll have some kid that like all of a sudden decides they want to try to play quads or they want to try to make marimba as a freshman. And you see a lot of growth sometimes when they see those opportunities. All that dust settles, now they're in the marching band, they're able to contribute at a high level wherever they are, and so much growth takes place that 9th grade year, that fall, wherever they end up.
That was me. That was all me.
I'm telling you.
9th grade year was like,
you're almost forced to.
Yeah.
You're surrounded by the one thing that we notice is like we're doing a better job. We're crazy. We have the middle school indoor thing, right? And those kids get a lot of like playing time, like compared to years past. Is one thing. I know we know the conversation about how to close the gap, and they've gotten better. But even still, it's still a big gap.
Yeah.
And then they get here and they're surrounded by all the seniors and juniors and sophomores that have already been through it, and they're telling them that ain't it.
yeah.
You think that ain't it. and that peer pressure just like skyrockets. They're on a whole new trajectory because they're like, oh my goodness, not only am I like, everyone's doing this, I have to figure it out.
Yes.
So some of that peer pressure kind of is a different lighter fluid for that fire. And I dig that.
That's because it doesn't mean anything for me to stand in front of them and do it.
Yeah.
They just figure, well, okay, yeah, of course.
Right.
And then some 9th or 10th grade kid that played snare last year plays it, and they go, whoa, okay. And I guess I better figure that out.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Did you guys hear that?
I do. Is it raining outside?
It is. Okay. I was like, what is that noise?
Wow.
It's
That
pouring.
rain came out of nowhere.
It really did. Did someone play rain dance?
You know what's so funny? Because I said that, and Shannon was just kind of looking at me really
Yeah.
weird. I was like, what did I just say that was so... But Shannon was like...
I was like, it's about to blow up, catch on fire.
Yeah, I was like,
that'd be a great segment. Hey, bloopers.
Yeah.
Well, at one point the mixer blew up.
Yeah.
That's what I thought was happening.
Well, I turned down the music because I was like, is that part of I know it's like a New York backdrop. Maybe it's like part of the beat, the boom bap. It's raining. It's kind of cool. I'm like, no, it is legitimately raining. So I don't know. What should we? I mean, I don't know. It might not stop for a while. If it's been kind of holding it in. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. Yeah, and I don't know if you can you see if it's registering it on the podcast recording?
Well, if we hear it,
it is.
It's
But I can just probably go in and do like a high pass
pass
filter
filter,
and try to get some of it out of there. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. That was pretty funny what we just did. I mean, that was great content.
Yeah.
We might just leave it in.
Yeah,
you
for
know?
sure.
So,
I'm good, man.
Yeah. Well, let's just keep going, and I'll go in and do some audio wizardry later. But
Okay.
I will turn this back on. But so okay. Anyway, sorry. So you were saying the audition process going into 9th grade. You really see a lot of growth from your kids. And
that first fall, and then continuing on the same process. And this is where you really start to see it. So what I'm hoping for in 9th grade is like they get their region music, and it's like business as usual. Oh yeah, or you want kids to go, hey, do you have the region music yet? Aren't we supposed to get region music?
Yeah.
What I find is when you go about it, it goes back to the philosophical thing I talked about, is like not waiting until later, but trying to get it from the beginning, is I'm trying to code the students that this is just what we do.
Yeah.
It's just part of our life. Yeah, we play region in the fall, and we do solos, and we always try to play this stuff and not make mistakes and things like that. Yeah.
Make good sounds.
Make good sounds.
Show up on time. And
Yeah, and make it just part of their culture, make it part of their lives. There's this old saying, attitude controls, not rules. Right? Mm-hmm. Like if their attitude is, I want to play this really well and I want this to sound a certain way, there's not a rule, there's not pass offs. All this, I haven't done as many pass off things as people probably think I have. I just I had to teach myself to do that again. There were times in my career where I needed to do it, and I think there's phases in a program when you first arrive where you need to do a little bit more of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to convert that to intrinsic motivation.
That's super awesome.
Yeah.
I think there's moments in all the interviews we've done, like moments like that I just think so many people want to get their program to that point.
Yeah.
Like Dr. Zader had some things he talked about. Jim Gist in our last interview had some things he talked about where I was just like, that's it. That's what people want. And so for you to say that, I think is really cool. You want your kids to be intrinsically motivated to do X, Y, Z.
Oh man, absolutely.
I love that.
I had a guy, I remember I was at Horn, and this guy, was after some of those couple of years, 13, 14, what's your pass off? Like how often are you hearing them? Are you having to play every movement? And I looked at the guy and I was like, man, we never do any pass offs. I mean, he was just so taken back. He was like, no, that doesn't make any sense. How are they? We don't do any.
Yeah.
Now we have some intense rehearsals. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But also the rehearsals are very just it's a process driven. It's not intense like this.
Yeah.
I mean, every once in a while you need a little bit of that, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
But the day-to-day 19 out of 20 rehearsals is process driven.
Execute the process.
Yeah, we do this. We're going to do these exercises, guys. When we get done making this gallop better, we need to take this gallop to another level. It needs to sound better. Then we're going to go to this spot in the show. You should hear a difference. And then they do. And that's the moment where it's like, oh, okay.
Right.
You convince them of the process. Now it's not about pass-offs and punitive, and it's about them buying into the process and themselves.
Yeah.
That's what I'm all about. And so the high school thing, it's all about when they receive what you're asking them to do, they're actually capable of doing it, so their experience is better.
Yeah.
Therefore, they get better things out of it.
Yep.
Right? I say this all the time, man. You know, and I know I talk about the region process a lot. So much of the region process is the last 5% of it. It is, you get them to the point where they learn the music and they're playing it and they're playing it and they're playing it and they're playing it and they're playing it. And then right at the end, they build some real skill.
Yeah.
There's some skill on the very tail end of it, like
Yep.
especially the kids that get ready for area.
Yep.
And
Musicianship, that performance, that confidence. We talk a lot in my program, you know, with everything is like, you know, realistically, guys, we can only get you 80% of the way there. I can get you 80% of the way there, but those last 20 points, you know, that you want to get, like, you want that judge to pop a 95, a 96, that's you guys.
Yeah.
That's your ability to throw down in the moment, to be great musicians, to be musical, to perform with each other.
Yeah.
And like, we're going to work on those concepts, but you got to buy in for that to get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what you're talking about with the region.
Absolutely,
stuff.
man. Absolutely. So, you know, and then we get into some like real percussion ensemble things. The kids have to learn how to juggle a few more things. You're not in one percussion ensemble, you're probably in two.
Yeah.
Some of them are in three, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Man, that's a different thing. Middle school, it's like the same ensemble every week, and it's
for 3 months.
right. Yeah, and you're doing it, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I'm not
Sure.
saying there's a problem.
It's part of the process.
It's part of the process. I mean, when they're that age, you know, maybe one or two, you know what I'm saying? You know,
Yeah.
there's some people I know that can juggle multiple, but that's also a real focus for them too. Like it's something they really, really want to do. But man, having to process multiple responsibilities across multiple things while they're preparing their solos, you know, all these kind of things.
We call that spinning plates in our program.
Yeah.
Shout out
Yeah.
Jim Yakis.
Yeah, right.
Spinning plates. That's what
Spinning plates. I'm telling you,
spinning
man.
plates.
So before we go in and actually watch some of your groups, just kind of give us an overview of like, you know, what do you want your high school? What is the identity of the high school groups that you teach? You know, obviously you guys do the standstill drumline thing, super high level. There's no question. We're gonna watch two different examples of that. What are the other things that you really prioritize? You know, when you're at Horn or now when you're at Byron Nelson?
It's definitely, we go for it in the fall, as you pointed out. This is not a knock. I'm just stating a fact. We do not do indoor drumline.
Sure.
I want to do the outdoor thing in the fall. I want to go hardcore with that. We go to 3 drumline contests in the fall. Usually HEB Plano and Lone Star. I still feel like is a big contest, and I've always appreciated that contest. All those contests that I named in the area, they have a rich heritage, and lots of competition. And then of course we do the band thing real hard, and we all do the band thing real hard, right?
Yeah.
Like you know, and then right after, you know, during all that is the region thing. I really prioritize the region thing. I want the students. You know, I think this last year, like maybe one student didn't do the region thing.
Yeah.
Like one student at the high
That's
school. And then the solo thing is a big deal. I want them to be able to play the solos. And what I talk to kids about a lot is there's an experience that you're getting with those solos. And if you're learning the last 2 lines the last week, you've missed it.
Yeah.
You have ruined your solo experience completely.
Yeah.
Because now you're just checking a box. You need to have those solos learned in February, March, and be playing them and really develop the skills. Those solos, you're playing them to develop the skills to make. I want your double stroke roll to sound completely different than it did 4 months ago. I want it to sound way better, right? And so we do that. And obviously we want the students to be able to represent themselves well within the band experience, right? Learning how to play in another ensemble where it's not just percussion, right? We want them to be able to handle their accessories and all that stuff really well. So I want them to be really good band members and be able to produce great sounds. And through that, some of that stuff, we may even talk about excerpts and all these stuff. So percussion ensemble and band work together with that. That's kind of the makeup of the program.
And you guys do percussion ensemble pretty hard in the spring?
Yeah. I thought I mentioned that. We do the percussion ensemble thing really hard between, I would say, December to our concert has been typically the week before spring break.
That's what we've done in the last few years. I really do like that timeline.
I like it too.
Because then you can just send them off to, like, I tell the band directors, like, I'm going to take them. I'm going to have them almost every day before spring break. But then after spring break, when you're working on UIL, you're always going to have them. You're never going to have to, barter with me. Can I get them? And now we're changing that a little bit this next year. But in the last couple of years we've done that. It's been super positive.
Man, and we go pretty hard at the percussion ensemble thing too. There's people that go more at it,
Yeah.
I don't, we do a few little lighting things and stuff like that, but for the most part, we're playing some really large work. That we did Drakenvor this past year.
Cool.
We've done Prelude to Paradise. We've done all this stuff over
Nice.
the years. I've done Prelude, Palace of Nine Perfections. We've done all the lit and all that kind of stuff. But I'm really into like picking just the right ensembles for the students that are playing them.
Yeah.
I think that process drives me nuts, by the way. I
Sure.
wish I could hire someone to professionally do it. I hate doing because I'm so indecisive with, they could play this and this would be great. Oh, they could play that and that'd be great. Oh, and so I just go down this rabbit hole that I don't care to be in. And so, man, the percussion ensemble thing, that's why I don't do the indoor drumline thing.
Yeah.
Is because I want the percussion ensemble thing to be really important. I think they get something out of that that's hard to simulate in other situations. I think sometimes that's just me, my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that do the indoor drumline thing very successfully, and it's great.
A beast.
It's a beast,
It's a
man. It's
beast.
a different thing, man. It's a different thing, right?
Yeah.
And my hat's off to you guys,
Thanks.
that do it. I'm serious, man. Yeah.
And we've seen a lot, again, no disrespect to anyone who doesn't do it, because everyone has, like I've said in last week's episode, when this episode airs, the last one will have aired a week prior. It's all one big puzzle piece, and like our puzzle piece right now is just like kind of go hard at everything, and that's really kind of gotten us to where we are, and we're really proud of that. That doesn't mean that next year won't be the same thing. Or for you, like your puzzle changes every year based on your kids and your different accomplishments, what your band wants to accomplish.
Yeah.
If you're doing a big band trip and going to BOA San Antonio or doing all this stuff, then you might want to scale back something else, or you might want to change it, and that's okay. Like we just all need to be okay with that, because at the end of the day, we're just providing great experiences for students.
That's right. The vehicles.
Yeah. So let's watch. Can we watch the first movement of the horn?
Yeah.
And then maybe we can watch the full Byron Nelson one. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, because I did get a chance to rewatch the horn, and I think that just first opening movement is so awesome. I won't spoil it. How you guys close that movement, but I think it's great. So, is that cool with you?
It's cool. We could do either one. We could do like.
Or would you rather do an entire one of the two? I kind of would like to see both.
Yeah, I want to see both as well.
Yeah.
That's fine. Let's go with that.
Let's start. Let's do the first one, and we'll watch the the first movement of this. Talk about it. We'll kind of live react to it a little bit, and have some questions for you at the end. So this is John Horn High School Drumline 2013 Lone Star Finals. First place, Standstill Division 1 at the time. Or was it split into red?
It was
and silver?
silver.
It was silver. Okay,
it was
cool.
silver at the time, and that's actually we had won. We actually weren't quite big enough to be silver that year. But we requested.
You won the division before.
And we requested to be at silver. That's why that rule exists now.
Awesome.
Nice.
Trendsetters over here. Pioneers. Okay, here we go. Let's check it out.
John Horn High School Jaguar Drumline, are you ready? Jaguar Drumline, you may take the field in Lone Star Classic Finals competition.
Like the timpani on the field?
Man, always. I still do it.
Love it. You got some Sertos down there, marching machine, cool rack.
Yeah, man, I won't leave the timpani thing. I just love the sound of timpani.
Y'all still do it at Byron Nelson too?
Absolutely.
Love it. We did it. We were able to do it for 3 years in a row. We just haven't quite had enough kids the last couple of years to really do it the right way.
Yeah.
But I want to get back to it for sure. Super strong opening. Quad featurette. Who wrote this book for y'all?
Doug Bush and Patricia Eastlock.
I thought so.
Yep.
And they were working with your kids at the time?
Yeah.
He wrote this. Woo!
That's the
Yeah, bass. Cool groove. Serto drum going. Love that. Little texture shift here, the dynamics. Yeah, but it is. I like the orchestration of the marimbas, like reaching over to play the lower end of the other instrument. That's cool. Bum. Yeah, snares. There's your buzz roll.
Woo!
Yeah.
And bass.
Space is done.
Old school bass visuals there.
Yeah.
It's always good contributions from the cymbals. Not to go unnoticed.
Cool.
Yeah, quads. Let's trade off here. Marimbas. Field change here. Woo!
Yeah.
I love that. Let's pause it there. Yeah, I remember when I was just going back and watching this, I was like, yeah, school pride.
Yeah, right.
You know, who
yeah,
says
man.
you can't have school pride and just
Yeah.
throw out a John Horn vocal there?
It just seemed right at the time.
Yeah.
It's like, why not?
They're hyping it.
Yeah.
They're hyping. So talk about that line and the experience getting them to sound as good as they did
Yeah.
in that
Man,
in that recording.
I just remember that season, and I would always say this, it's not good until it is. You can speculate like, man, I think the line could be good this year, but then it's not. I think every line that's like that there's a little bit of an aspect of lightning in a bottle to some extent, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the players are there and everybody's there, but we had the right book and we had the right students at the time. Man, they just took it and they really went for it.
What year was that for you? At that program?
2013.
Well,
but
how
for
how many years had you been there at that point?
That was my 7th year there.
Cool.
7th year. One thing I talk about a lot, and I don't jump questions here, but like I talked a lot about vertical alignment. I always thought
Yeah.
that was one of the things that made a difference for the line, and trying to achieve that clarity. Part of the clarity is individually segmented, like clarity, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
But part of the clarity is like that opening statement where it's everything was vertically aligned, and that was a very, very strong point of emphasis for us the whole time. We also talked about, I think at the youth stages that we teach at high school, we have to treat it a little differently than the drum corps thing. And what I mean by that is like, it is about the ears, and you can't talk enough about that. But at that age, everybody has to work to sound a certain way. Like they have to be, because the student may not sound the way they're supposed to sound.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? And so there's a lot less of just automatic skill that's there that then you train the ears to balance it. And so I would do a lot of like, okay, you play it. Now you play it.
Yeah.
You see how different that sounded?
Yeah.
Like, even if you do clean with him, it'll never sound like that.
Yeah.
It's got to have the
Like-
same intent behind it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so hard, and I struggle with that myself just because I almost don't want to know sometimes. You don't want to know. You're like, I know I kind of have an inkling that might not quite be there. I'm just going to let it be a full ensemble thing. But I think doing what you're saying is really how you get it to the next level.
Absolutely, man. And you really turn, I like to use a micro to macro concept a lot too, where, we're playing, the students playing with this subdivision. Everybody should be able to play it with that subdivision. You'll hear kids like, yeah, I can't play it with those 32nd notes on, those 16th notes on. I can't. Well, then when you're cleaning, when you're trying to play it, your listening is reactive. Like you're playing it, you are not necessarily able to play it with the right concept. So every time you clean, you're reacting instead of just being able to execute it perfectly and go from there, right? So like being able to play it exact, every student being able to play it at the same level. I concentrate on that a lot. Is like, yes, I believe in the listening concept, but I think there's only so much of a product that you can get if it sounds completely different from player to player. And so it takes a little bit more time, and it's kind of aggravating, but it's also, but it's also like kind of what needs to be done, I think. And what I mean by micro to macro is I do a lot of metronome play with that stuff where, yes, it's all the subdivision, and then it's just quarter notes. And then I like to do like half note metronome and whole note metronome. And I get to the point in those seasons where I can, mute. I want to be able to just mute the metronome, and then 8 measures later, just turn it back on, and they're still there. And I, and it sounds like, no, they can't do that. They can. They can if you just do it. But it has to be like a half note metronome, a whole note. Because what it is,
get 'em there.
man, I tell you, it helps you so much at the lower levels too. And when I say lower, I mean younger. Is like a student, they don't understand that, yes, they can play if a metronome is doing this. It's beating them on the head every beat. But if I just take one beat away here and one beat away here, you'll rush your head off between 1 and 3.
Right.
But they don't know it until you do it.
Yeah.
And then, whoa.
This is increasing the responsibility.
Yes.
We do that. We do that a lot here, and it's all about like, yes, cool, metronome. We do that great in the beginning of the season, and it's like, okay, cool. Now, can you actually keep it in time if I take that beat 2 away? Okay, what if I take 2, 3, and 4 away? Can you still line it up? Okay, cool. Every 2 measures, like we try to get it as macro as possible, so they are responsible for the tempo, not the doctor beat.
That's right. Man, I'll give you another one that I do, and I do this in percussion ensemble a lot. It still like blows me away sometimes. You'll have, everybody's supposed to be listening to the xylophone player right here, right? And there's like 6 or 7 people in the room that are supposed to be listening to the xylophone player and listening to each other. Man, try to go down the row and say, all right, marimba 1, play with the xylophone. No metronome.
Yeah.
And they'll play it successfully. Marimba 2, try it. Train wreck.
Right.
Train wreck. And everybody is always so surprised in the ensemble. I do it in marching band, I do it in percussion ensemble. Everybody's surprised because they thought that Jimmy or whoever that was going to play it perfectly. They think it's a waste of time. Well, of course he can play the xylophone player. He can't. He can play it with that marimbist next to them who's actually listening and can actually understand how it's supposed to fit. Well, what does that create in real time though? It creates this reactionary like, I don't really know how this goes, but I'm going to stay with you, and that's where the dirt is.
Just kind of hanging on.
The whole time. That's where the dirt is. And then you get marimba 2 playing it with the xylophone and really understanding it. Then you go to marimba 3, and they can't do it either. Marimba 4 can totally do it. It's
you never
not.
know.
You never know.
Changes the movable tick almost.
It is, and so that's another part of it is like, can you really play that with the bass line? Can you, or if we're supposed to be listening to the quads, can you really do it there? And that makes a huge difference. Awesome. Is that kind of thing. So increasing the responsibilities, as you said, Shannon. Right?
Yeah, I like the other concept you talked about. Going down the line and checking. I do that a lot. Like I tell the snare line every year for 15 years. Like I have no magic dust that I can pull out and say clean snare line. It's only going to happen when you can play it and sound right, and you can play it and sound right, and you can play it and there's no hiding. Like you think you can hide, but you cannot hide. You can't hide, especially with the judges we get and the level we compete at. There will be no hiding. Either you can do it or you cannot, and you will be exposed. So if you go into it with that kind of mindset, it's like, yeah, you're going to do it for real, like for real. Like I know you're a freshman or whatever. You're a younger player. You got to sound at the center snare. You have to, and then we start with that in mind, and it helps them to really understand. Okay, I really got to develop not only just playing the rhythms and all that stuff, but like, do I sound good playing the rhythms?
Exactly. Well, it's also the concept is I think a lot of students think that cleanliness is 100% rhythmic precision, and they underestimate the balance concept and the tone. What are your taps sound like? How much different taps can sound from player to player, which is, by the way, 85% of the notes you're playing in that passage. Right. So that's I think that's the overall concept of that.
Let's go to the Byron Nelson video, and I haven't seen this, so I'd like to watch the whole thing. If
Sure.
that's cool with you.
Yeah, man.
And this looks like you guys filmed this like in an auditorium, or this is kind of an end of year video.
It was actually just kind of getting ready for the competition.
Cool.
This is not one of those recording sessions. It was just like a rehearsal, and somebody set up. Actually, it might have been that week. We have this thing where we perform for the lunches.
Oh, cool.
And we normally go in the courtyard. We have a courtyard at our school, and we
Nice.
perform. People come out the last 10 minutes of their lunch and watch our drumline show.
Oh, I love that.
And so I started that several years ago. Well, it was raining that day. So we were able to set up in the PAC, the Performing Arts Center, and I think somebody just set up some different cameras, and this is the multicam. You know, some students just did it.
Sweet.
That was it.
That's awesome. And this is Music of Mizlanka. This is your drumline show from this past year?
Yes, it is.
Wonderful. Let's give it a listen. There's your rolls. We talked about never having rolls in marching percussion. Some crown of thorns here. Really good French group timpani rolls there.
Yeah, it's really good timpanist.
I love this. I think people should arrange percussion ensemble music more for marching, the marching percussion idiom.
Yeah.
Tends to work very well.
A cool display of all the themes from Crown of Thorns. Nice sextuplet and the xylophone. Bass drum roll there in the background. I like the China cymbal set up there.
Yeah.
Thought
Yeah.
about doing that. Yeah, bass.
Bass is one of my favorite things to teach.
Yeah.
And I was a quad player by trade, you know.
Legendary bass lines you talked about.
Man, I just think it adds so much when your bassist can do that.
When your bass can play, yeah, man, it's a different level.
Boom, 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 boom.
That mallet has seen better days.
Yeah, man. I was hoping you didn't catch that.
It's all good. It sounds great. Good inner mallet work here. Yeah, there you go. It's like you talk about, like, what percentage are you actually playing up here? You know, it's so much down.
Man, I don't remember when I had that epiphany, but like I remember like, wait a minute, we spent all this time,
Yeah.
and it's like they don't do that.
It's not really applicable.
Yeah.
You have to have that skill as well, but like you said, 85% notes, they're at 3 inches.
Yeah.
I love demonstrating that to the beginners. Like, we're doing this, that's pretty cool, right? Well, what if I go,
Yeah.
oh, that's cool. Yep, now you know that's how I did that.
Yeah.
I think you guys need some more speakers. Just kidding. So, it's cool. There. Traditional grip. Do all the mallet players play traditional or Burton, or just see some different grips?
It's all no. It's all Burton for the vibes.
Cool.
And it's all Stevens for the Burtons.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Very just logical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do like Burton for the vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've known some great groups that do that. Tasty snare beats.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Do Doug and Patricia still?
Yeah.
No, I kind of know the answer. Can we reset it for the end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll save it for the end.
Okay.
Nice. What are your bass drum sizes there, John?
I do this particular year. I went 18, 20, 22, 24. 18, 20, 22, 28, 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
You're a great xylophone player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is love when you have those kids can really contribute.
Such a great instrument because it cuts so well. It's like when the clarity is there, the quality is like, that sounds good.
Yeah. Man, Shannon, actually, I think it's 18, 20, 22, 24, 30.
24, 30. Wow.
Because
that's a big jump.
Well, and I think because it was, normally it's been 28, but my as a freshman on bass, bottom bass,
Yeah.
he could carry the 30. So we did it.
Nice.
You're just like, why not?
Yeah. I like a 30 when you can use it, right? Because you can put some tension on the head and still lower than a 28.
Yeah.
I mean,
I like it.
Really great, beautiful expression and permutative work here from the keyboards. And good coordination. It's always nice to hear one marimba line going one way and a vibraphone line going the other way. You can get those moments to kind of happen.
I like that a lot too.
And I love, the groups I write for too, I'm just like, can we put the Crotales on the xylophone, please?
Yeah.
Because because the xylophone player is not going to be able to play
Everything.
100% of. It's not that he can't play what the marimbas are playing. It just won't always be appropriate.
Yeah.
Marimbas might be
Not the
doing
right
some
texture.
ballad stuff, You don't want your xylophone player doing the same thing. So having them have that color, I think, is super important.
I've done that for a long time.
Yeah. It's a winning formula. Oh, some intermallet sextuplets there.
Yeah.
You got some sheet metal back there in case you need to build some props.
Yeah. It's probably me simulating the clapping time because we're always talking about how that's perfect space between the movements. That's natural.
Yeah.
Because if you go 2 seconds too long, people start.
Yeah.
It's confusing. Yeah.
Hey, wait.
You have to really work on that.
We can talk about that because we experienced that this year. Dampening here.
Nice.
I like the singles.
Some great vocabulary in the show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Woo, quads.
Saying the hands up. It's always cool when the kids, that kind of stuff, they have to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
It's that last 20%.
Yeah.
That's not in the beginner book?
No. I mean, it happens in the class sometimes unintentionally.
Never on purpose.
Cello rondo here. Nice.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
All right. So, John,
that last part is just like, I just love when you listen to the basses and it's like, that's the snare book on bass drum, split
Yeah.
between 4 bass drummers.
oh yeah.
That's awesome.
So John, who wrote that book?
It was David Cavazos and Houston Young.
And these are who?
These are former students of mine.
And that's a full circle cool thing that I know those two guys personally, and they were John Horn students
In that 2013 video.
in that 2013 video.
That's
Both of them.
incredible.
Those are the two students that have gone on to some amazing things in the world of music, and now they write your drumline book,
Yeah.
and you trust them,
Yes.
and that is such a cool thing to witness because I know those guys, and I know you have seen those guys grow up in your program and then go on to do some great things, and then that relationship is continued, and that's got to be a cool feeling for you.
It's fantastic, man. It's fantastic. David and Houston have been with me for years. They're actually, like, Houston is actually being a percussion instructor this next year.
Oh, wow.
He's going to be at Red Oak High School this next year being a percussion instructor.
Wow.
So
Very cool.
This thing. And man, David is doing so many things. He just like subbed with the Dallas Symphony.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
This past, like, I think just a week or two ago. So
Yeah.
he's like going all over doing orchestral stuff. So it's great, man. It's a great full circle moment. I'm starting to experience that more and more. I mean, I go to these football games now.
Yeah.
And on the other side is like, Scott Gustafson. I'll use him as an example if you guys know Scott.
Yeah.
I taught him in Allen. I started him in percussion. Like, he was a beginner with me in Allen High School.
Wow.
In Allen, Curtis Middle School or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to run into those guys a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That is almost more of a like uncomfortable moment than like the white hairs that show up in your goatee. You know what I mean? Like, that's one thing to look in the mirror, but then you go like, wait, you're a sixth grader. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You're like doing the thing now? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Mr. Bingaman, do you know him? Yes.
I taught him.
I taught him.
We'll talk a little bit about that here, kind of wrapping up before we do our other segments. Like, this podcast is all about, this is your dream job, right? We always walk around, we're like, hey, how's, one of the reasons we started this was like, it's kind of funny. We see each other at conventions, we see each other, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Oh, living the dream.
Yeah, right.
But how many times do you hear someone say that and it's sarcastic?
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, it shouldn't be that way. Like, we are living the dream. Like, we get to teach drums every day, and we love to do that. And like, you're an example of someone who's been teaching for 23 years now, and you're still doing it. So like, how do you do that?
Man, I believe in, like, you know what you signed up for, and there's certain times of the year where you have to be in it.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. There's a couple weeks there in the March, where it's very intense. We're trying to get ready for this drumline contest, and then when I finish with something, like I finish with Marching Caesar or something, I take a couple weeks where I don't go at it pretty hard.
Sure.
I mean, I think it's important to take those moments to breathe.
Yeah.
And don't stay up at the band hall all the time every week. Don't just find reasons to be there.
Right.
I also try to delegate a few more things. And it's funny. I'll give you a simple example. Those 2013 videos or 14, all those horn years, I tuned every drum on all those videos.
Yeah.
I tuned. He's been with me. Shannon Jacobs and I.
Yeah.
Replacing some heads together, talking concepts, all this stuff.
Yeah.
The shellac.
Right. Yeah.
Man, we did all of that stuff. Man, I don't tune the drums like that anymore.
Yeah.
I tune the basses now. I let Houston and David tune the drums.
Cool.
I can tune drums.
Yeah.
It's not about, like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can listen to the lines. Yes.
Yes, they are in tune.
They're in tune. They sound good.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Yep. So I delegate a few things like that.
That's cool.
And so I think you take your moments, gradually ramp into something, then it's going to be really intense, and then try to chill a little
Find
bit.
the time to breathe.
Find some time to breathe. I think it's really important to delegate, find time to breathe a little bit. One thing that I think has been prominent too is like some of the maintenance of our equipment. Every other instrument, every other person, they set that French horn outside the door, and that repair guy comes by and they get it.
Yeah.
Man, I call Rich Bono a lot.
We have started calling him for more things over the last few years, and it has been amazing.
Yeah, man.
I'm like, you know what? I could probably look online to figure out how to fix that snare harness and get the right wires, but you know what? Let's just put that on someone else's plate.
Exactly.
Someone who's really professional and can do it the right way, and it'll just get done.
And what do you lose by that? Nothing.
Yeah.
The percussion community is benefiting because this is validating his position and what he does.
Yeah.
It's making what he does sustainable, but it's also making
Give
what
him
you
time.
do sustainable.
Yeah.
Right.
It's mutually beneficial.
Man, all of those Sundays and Saturdays trying to fix that snare harness is what does you in, man.
Yeah.
It's what eventually does you in.
Yeah.
It's that stuff, man, because it's 6 days a week. You can't do 7.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know? And it's this evening. I got every evening after school except for this one. And that's the evening I'm going to try to fix that vibe pedal.
Right.
And that turned into 4 hours.
Yep.
No, thank you. It's like, so I think that's a key, man. I really take now when I'm in it, man. We're the week before Lone Star, are you kidding?
Yeah.
We are
Yeah.
all the way. But man, right after that,
Yeah. sitting back,
chilling,
hanging out.
leaving school very, very soon.
Yeah.
After it's over, you know,
Out.
Yeah.
out.
Where's John go? Oh, he's out there. He's
Already made it past 2 red lights. How did he do that? Yeah.
Man, he's doing donuts. Parking lot.
He's
It's
just
crazy.
thrilled the season is over. He can do his own thing.
It's cool. Man.
And not to get too personal, but you know, you have a wife, good relationship with your wife, and you have children. You know, they're pretty understanding, and you guys have. How do you approach that part of your life and keeping that balance?
Well, my wonderful wife, she's a middle school band director, which I think is the craziest job in the world.
Yeah.
I think middle
kidding.
school band directors are a different breed, man.
Yep.
Their daily schedule is So she gets it. She gets what I do. But also, man, you know, I have things that I try to do at home. I do try to take the boys to baseball practice, and I pick them up from school and things like that. And I have these little, you know, holes where I can do that. Sometimes I'll even have rehearsal start, you know, at 5 or 5:30, and then I'll go, you know, pick up one of my kids or do something.
Yeah.
Then come back. I've done that, you know. So we work things together where we're both doing the kid things, and it works out that way. It doesn't become too heavy on one or the other.
That's cool.
I think that's where sometimes some strife can take place, you know. And like I said, man, the kids understand there's a period of time there, and sometimes Alicia has periods of time where she needs to be really in on what she's doing, and it just works out where when she's doing that, I can come in and do a little bit more.
Yeah.
And when I need to be in my thing, she can come in and do a little
The
bit
ebb
more.
and flow of your years.
It
you know,
does.
kind of just being aware of that and communicating is super important.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
if you don't
And we figured it
communicate,
out.
then you just get to that point where you're both, you know, stressed, and all of a sudden 2 or 3 weeks have gone by, you haven't done anything
That's
with your
right.
significant other or for your family, and you're like, oh, how did I get to this point? It's like you got to communicate, you got to plan that stuff out.
Exactly. And
So-
you feel, but and it's funny, you haven't done anything. You say like, but you also are exhausted.
Yeah, you-
on top of it.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
it's not like you're not doing anything. You're not being
Yeah.
lazy. You're
Yeah.
just committing so much to your work, which we're so passionate about.
This is
So-
about like we talk about spinning plates. It's,
Yeah.
You know, you got family, and you got your job, and you got this contest and that thing and other thing, and you can't ignore one. You gotta keep. You can't get so intense on one and ignore something else. You gotta keep moving around.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
Well, this has been a really awesome interview. We're super happy to have you out, and thank you for making the trip out here. And
Yeah.
it's so much great insight, and just from talking to you more, you know, I've known you for a long time. Shannon's known you for longer. Like I learned a lot just listening to you, and I've learned like there's more things I want to ask you now. You know,
Oh,
so
yeah,
we might
man.
have to do a follow up. John Bingaman, you know, part 2
Yeah,
somewhere
man.
down the line. You
Anytime,
know,
man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
once we get through all these other scrub guests.
Ah, okay.
No,
Whatever, man.
just kidding. We've got a really great lineup, and we're excited for everyone who gets to come on. So, is there anything before we do our silly quote unquote segments? Is there anything else you want to talk about your book, or anything else you want to plug, or how do we get your book, or anything else you want to talk
Well,
about?
man, obviously I want to talk about the book. It was something I was really passionate about, man. It
Yeah.
took me, as Shannon said, years. And Shannon's saying that, you know, and not he's being nice about it, but he knows how long I worked on it, you know, and I worked on it a long time, because it's hard to do something like that while you're doing this job.
Yeah, no kidding.
You know, and man, it's a lot of late nights, you know, it's things like that. And fortunately, Houston Youngman helped me with the book, and another person, the pit section leader of that 2013 line, Sharon Matthew, she does graphic design for a living now.
Oh wow.
And she was also on the book project, so you know that was really special. But like, man, I wrote the book honest 100%, man, for exactly what I quoted earlier reading. I want people to have a good experience when they teach it.
Yeah.
The fact is, we all feel better when our beginners are doing well, and I figured this out a long time ago. If your beginners are killing it, you feel like, man, the programs, we're headed somewhere.
Yeah.
It's something about the mental health of your beginners doing well, and especially, you know, it's like bowling, man. If you can get 2 strikes in a row,
Yeah.
you got something. You get 3 strikes in a row, you know something. Okay, I'm going to score pretty well here.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what it's like. And that's what this book is about, making the next thing feel natural.
Yeah.
And it's not just about what you do, it's when you do it.
Yeah.
And that's what I tried to demystify in this book. I promise, if you try it, just turn the page, just follow it.
Keep going.
Just keep doing it. And man, a couple of things, I don't want to prolong things
No.
here, but the beginning of the book is not, there's no sticks or anything at the beginning. it goes through several pages of just you're sitting down and you're learning about timing, tapping your toe. I have a real interesting way. There's some stuff that's not even in the book where I talk about fingers, like teaching, like this is a downbeat, this is an upbeat.
Yeah.
This is a full beat,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and then you split it,
Yeah.
you know, right? And so I do all these different things with that. There's all this stuff that they can learn without having their sticks first. So when they do get sticks, the timing concept is there.
Already kind of there, yeah.
And man, I think that's the most difficult part for people, especially coming into the business. It's like, how do you get some kid that's never played before to play?
Yeah.
A lot of people face so much trepidation with that. Also, the whole idea of like, okay, I don't want to start mallets in chapter 1.
Yeah.
I don't start mallets in chapter. It's all theory based. It's the musical alphabet, and then it just stacks on the musical alphabet on the staff, musical alphabet on the instrument, and right around chapter 5, right after there's a mallet foundation chapter where we introduce, now you're going to play mallets.
Cool.
Yeah.
And which is what everybody really wants to do.
Yeah.
They
We
want to
all talk about that. Everyone talks about, oh, how much better they'd be if they did snare mallets at the same time. But I love that it seems like you, and I've seen this in other beginner books too, credit, everyone else in the industry, but like trying to present a way to actually do it and not just
get
talk
there.
about it.
Yeah, but without, yeah, because that's a big part about beginner process. I know with other beginner books, and we still battle this a little bit. But you take that beginner and you've like this drum or we've had six, cool. We're drawing these rhythms and stuff, and then we get to October, whatever. It's like, okay, now we're doing mallets, and they get really discouraged.
Yeah.
Because now all this stuff, I gotta start over.
Yes.
Now I'm back to being not very good. And I have to figure this out and figure this out. Versus something that's been kind of introduced and gradually thrown on
put in
top.
there.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, cool. Now we can just put them out hands, and we've already been doing this for a couple weeks.
You know what's going on, and that you describe this experience. Everybody's experienced that. Like, it's not just the students that feel that way. We feel that way. Like, you're going back to the beginning of the book
Yeah.
to do it, and so I tried to eliminate. I wanted you again. You're just turning the page.
Yeah.
And you're just doing it, and here you are. I wanted to create an experience with that. You can get the book on my website, jbpublish.com.
Okay.
But it's also available through Steve Weiss or Dallas Percussion
Yep.
or Music and Arts, Brooke Mays, anybody. And the reality is, if
Barnes and
somebody Barnes and Noble. Okay. Hey man, I should
Maybe
try that.
someday.
People would be just like, yeah, I'll try that. Yeah, right. But also, man, I have people. They'll just say, well, we have to do everything through our local music store. It's pretty simple. They just call me and say, hey, somebody wants your book.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like, oh no, I don't sell it through them.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like this. So you can get the
Cool.
book basically anywhere.
Cool. Anything else you got going on you want to plug, or book? Are you doing any more clinics? You've done a couple clinics.
Man,
recently.
I put in. We'll see. I might have a clinic coming up soon. And then
How to
I
be
do.
a great podcast guest.
Yes, yes, that's my next clinic. How to, and then I have been going out doing some school district staff developments.
Oh, that's right. I've seen that too.
And so I like to do that. I kind of enjoy doing that. And I've done the ones where you just talk for a couple of hours. I've done the ones where you're like the guy talking for 7 hours.
Wow,
It's
just
like
the whole day.
You know,
Yeah.
just the whole day of going through the curriculum and stuff. So I kind of like doing that too, man.
Cool. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people would benefit from that. And do you ever go? I mean, now I'm just thinking like, I just want to have John out to work with our beginners.
Oh,
You
man.
know? I mean, I'm sure you work with drum lines and percussion ensembles, but do you ever just go out and
You know,
observe
nobody
some
ever
beginners?
asked me, man. It's funny. And I don't say it's funny. It's just like, because nobody's asked me to do that. I understand that.
Let's put it on the record. We're going to be the first ones. We want you to come out and work with our beginners.
It's a very
John, teach the
personal
whole beginner
thing.
class.
Yeah, actually, we should hire you to teach the beginner class.
Hey, wait a
There we go.
minute. Wait, hold
Delegation.
on.
You talked about no, I'm just kidding.
You're sitting back with like a Route 44.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, man, keep going. Keep
This is
going.
going
Yeah,
great.
it's great. Yeah, keep turning the page, like you said. No, I'm just kidding.
Man, I like we were listening to the drum line, man. For a second, you went into like total judge mode. I was looking for you I was waiting on you to say, I appreciate the simultaneous responsibility.
Yeah,
Like, you were
gotta
like,
mix it up a little bit.
yeah,
You
man,
know?
I was like, man.
The score's already there. The score speaks for itself. So I'm not judging. I'm just pointing out, to our
It's
listeners.
awesome,
so.
man. Yeah.
Well, let's have some fun. Let's do a couple of our segments that we've got going.
All
right. This has been great, but let's jump into some fun stuff. So, you want to do? I got a new one that I came up with today.
Yeah.
Called John's Favorites.
Okay.
So it's going to be kind of the checkout. We're just going to try this out because I might do this on some other guests. But I'm just going to just rapid fire.
Oh, God, I'm scared.
Okay, so just like whatever pops in your head, just for the people listening at home. All right, this is John's favorite. I got about 10 or 12 of them, okay? So here we go. Ready?
Okay.
Favorite rudiment?
Oh, inverted flam taps.
Can you demonstrate for us? Nice. There we go. That's exactly perfect. Wonderful. Okay, favorite scale?
Harmonic minor?
A specific one in harmonic minor.
Oh, D?
Okay.
Love it. Favorite chord?
Favorite chord? A flat 2.
Nice.
A flat 2 chord.
Jazzy. Love it.
Yeah.
Favorite beginner quirk?
Could you elaborate on that?
You know, we all teach beginners every day. Is there something that you know
They do that
is funny?
to you,
It's funny to you. You see them do anything specific, picking their nose or, you know,
Man,
coming in with their shoes untied. You know.
I think it's the kid that plays on after a piece. I always wonder, where'd you get the music from?
Yeah.
Like, they played everything that everybody played. They're not lost. They played everything that everybody played, but then sometimes they'll keep playing, even after playing the last measure correctly.
Yeah.
Where did you get that music from? I
You just
don't,
made it up.
I don't know. I'm
Version
serious.
2.0.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right, that's a good one. Okay, favorite beginner percussion ensemble?
Oh, wow. There's one called the Black Knight that's really cool. I also really like, man, this is this old school roll-off one. It's called Taste of the Classics.
Okay, cool.
It's pretty aggressive, but like also if you can do it with a beginner class, and it takes like a lot of people. It takes like 13 people.
That's always good.
Yeah.
So that was a good one, yeah.
I will say my answer to that is Ken and Wiley's William Tell Overture. It's one we've done every single year, and now my seniors they're like, oh, what did you play on William Tell? Because they all kind of, I'm like, let's get all the chime players of William Tell together, because there's that
Yes.
chime solo in William Tell. So that's just my
Man, and
answer
some
for
of
that
those,
one.
man, like he's got that Orpheus in the Underworld
Yep.
and all those, man, you know, and I just got done doing the North Texas Middle School Percussion Camp.
Yeah.
With Kennan and Mark Biggs and John Lee. And every year I'll play, I've done that Orpheus at that camp, man, we rotate these ensembles, and that's great. Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, next one. Favorite accessory instrument to teach?
Kabasa.
Can you give us a visual demonstration?
I like to show them the Kabasa roll.
Yeah.
I like to show them the Kabasa roll because the kids always get into it, man. And obviously, I like to teach tambourine and things like that.
Well, that's the same thing with tambourine. You show them like a figure 8
Yeah,
thumb roll.
right.
They're like, how do they
How do you do
immediately
that?
want
Yeah.
to do that?
Yeah, right.
Okay, favorite drum corps?
Favorite drum corps, SCV.
Nice. Drum corps as a whole, or specifically because of the drum line?
Probably specifically because of the drum line, and I also like the corps. I like the vibe of the corps, but there's so many great drum corps. But
Oh
I
yeah, it's
really
hard to
like this.
pick one.
It is,
But
yeah.
that's why it's called John's favorites.
Yeah, right.
You know,
There you
second
go.
and third favorite. Favorite rideshare company?
Oh, Uber.
Uber.
Yeah.
You're an Uber guy.
Yeah.
Favorite pizza topping?
Canadian bacon.
Nice. Favorite vacation destination?
Destin.
Destin. Oh, it's right in the name.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Huh?
Favorite podcast?
Yeah. Dream Job.
Yay! Great
job.
job. Great job.
Yeah.
That's the right answer.
That's
I've been
Seriously-
watching it for years.
Yeah, seriously though, if do you have a favorite podcast that's been released and has credibility?
No, Riley. I can't think of one other tthan this one.
Yeah, no, I'm not playing with you anymore. You can just be serious for now. You don't. And some people aren't podcasters, so.
I'm not like a big podcaster per se, so I can't really. It's funny. I've only listened to stuff when I'm going to hear a specific thing, if
Yeah,
that makes sense,
sure.
right? So I'm listening to it because somebody said, "Hey, you need to listen to this person."
Right.
Yeah, I'm not listening to every episode of
Yeah.
say a podcast.
It's a lot, man.
It is, but I understand. Some people are in it and they're listening to it all the time. But yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, there's my segment.
Oh, awesome.
Thanks for your answers.
You have
man.
another one though, right? Yes.
I have another segment.
Okay. Fantastic. Okay. Good.
But we're gonna do good idea, bad idea. and
No,
then-
we're not going to do good idea,
Are we
bad
doing
idea
movies?
first. We're doing movies, okay?
Okay.
All right.
So
Here we go.
there's some people, John's friends, that know that he has an affinity for movies. Like, now listen. Besides cleaning all these beats and stuff, he has time to watch every movie that I've never seen, and Riley knows this too.
I'm in that boat.
Because
as well.
Riley was like, "Have you seen this?" I've never have seen it. I don't care how popular or offshoot it is. I'm not a movie guy. TV rarely, you know.
I feel like you're about to get me here. I don't know. I feel like.
Well, I'm looking at the list now, and these you should be able to
you
get.
should be solid with these, right?
You should be able to get
So,
these.
so a lot of these are pretty good. I mean, we got a list of movie quotes here, and John, I'll say the quote, and then I want you to tell me the movie it's from.
Okay.
We're gonna go back
I'll
and
try.
forth.
Yeah, let's do
There
it.
we go.
We'll go back and forth, right? Let's go. I'm the king of the world.
Oh, that's the Christmas, the one black and white movie.
Okay. Maybe I should act it out.
That'd be great.
That'd be better.
That'd be a first for the podcast.
If I give the context and the scene that it said.
Go for it.
All right.
I bet he'll get it if you do
All right.
that.
I'm the king of the world.
So far,
Is it?
so far this is not going.
This is not going
This is not going well. That's not.
This is also
that's not,
topical
That's not
right
Titanic.
now.
It is. It is. It is.
Okay. You know, there's the one though. What is the Christmas movie? The black and white. Well, the guy at the end. He's like,
Like Miracle on 34th.
yes. Doesn't he run and yell that at the end? Isn't that what
haven't seen
he's
the movie.
yelling?
That's why
when
we
he's
brought you
running
in.
down
Yeah.
the street at the end, he's yelling. That.
Not
He
only
yells, I'm the king of the
John
world.
got the other with the B answer, the B side answer.
You got the deep dive.
Right.
Okay.
That's-
All right.
All right. Cool. Let's do another one. That's too easy. You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Jaws.
Good.
Yeah.
Much better.
Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss.
Dude,
Robert Shaw is so great in
classic.
that.
Steven Spielberg.
There's no crying in baseball.
Is that not? It's not. It's about the girls. Come on, what's the name of it? You know the ones I'm talking about.
Oh, I do, because I'm looking at the list.
Yeah, right. But it's the one about the girl, the woman
women's baseball team, right?
baseball team.
A league.
A League of Their Own.
Yeah.
Yeah, a League of Their Own.
Yeah.
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 Here's one. You talking to me? Are you talking to me?
You talking to me? That's Scarface.
Nope.
Nope.
Close. Some shared actors, I think.
Is it?
I'll give you a hint. De Niro.
Yeah, right. It's which consequently you're going to be surprised. I know the movie you're talking about.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him.
Really? Well, it's one of those you've
The
seen.
Godfather.
No.
Okay.
Taxi Driver.
Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
Why did? Okay. I thought,
Great movie. Weird movie, but great movie.
Never seen it.
Yeah.
Never seen it.
Give you a couple more?
Yeah, but let's see. Here's Johnny.
Oh, that's The Shining.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do this last one. Nobody puts baby in a corner.
Oh, that's Footloose. Not Footloose. Not Footloose.
That's the B answer.
That's the B answer. Oh wait, but that's
Same actor, right? I might be wrong about that.
is that not with Patrick Swayze
Patrick
and,
Swayze, yeah.
not Footloose. Oh God.
As someone who is familiar with alliteration,
It does have alliteration in it.
Why am I drawing a blank on this? I feel so embarrassed because I know the movie, right? Because I can see it's the girl from Ferris Bueller's Day Off,
yeah.
and Patrick Swayze, and why am I not able to think about the movie?
It's not clean. What they're doing is not clean.
Dirty Dancing.
There you go.
That's right.
Dirty
Why did I
Diddles.
say Footloose? Yeah, Dirty Dancing. I could see the movie in my head and
Yeah.
see the character.
You see the scene where he pulls her, right?
Yeah, right. But I was like, I don't know why I said that.
Well, that was our foray for the Dream Job podcast into more pop culture. So we'll see if we add a few more listeners with that segment.
Of course, yeah. And I have like a very specific, all these 80s movies. I know all these 80s movies and stuff. I just have some movies I've seen way too many times.
Oh yeah.
Johnny has a lot of quotes. He'll like consistently use. Like you be walking around and then he'll see something that reminds him. And he'll say, "I'm like, I don't know what that's from."
I don't know what that is.
But we'll be hanging out with Doug and Patricia, and Doug knows it. He goes,
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I don't know what he's talking about. I have no idea what
I don't know why that applies to the situation.
That's awesome.
We went it down.
I guess I'll do my why'd I do that?
Okay.
Okay.
Try that. So this is one we just introduced last time. and then Shannon will finish with his classic good idea, bad idea. But this is called Why'd I Do That? Okay, and this is like I'm basically I could be any level of music educator, and I'm just asking. I did something, and I'm asking you. You're the master educator. Why'd I do that? And you're just gonna impart your knowledge onto me. Okay. So here's my first question, Mr. Bingaman. I threw a temper tantrum in front of my ensemble for things outside of their control. Why'd I do that?
Because they weren't progressing at the level that you wanted them to, and your frustration spilled over. You may not have understood what they didn't understand.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand what you don't understand.
Yeah.
And that can be frustrating.
Translates to rage.
It translates
sometimes.
to rage, and that could be the reason.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Interesting. I program music that was way beyond my students' ability level. Why'd I do that?
Just sometimes you start you start your career, or even when you've been in your career, understanding how difficult something is, and how not just how their ability level, but how far they're willing to go.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can miss the mark on those things, trying to put that together. What are they capable of versus what they're willing to do?
Sure.
And then maybe I underestimated the difficulty level of all that. Sometimes there's some things in there that make it even harder that's not detectable early on until you get it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. I stayed after rehearsal to have a one-on-one conversation with a struggling student. Why'd I do that?
Oh, help them. You might, or to motivate them, either in a caring way or a Darth Vader way, sometimes you have to have that talk like, hey, look, at this point, it's two sides of this, right?
Yeah.
There's the like, hey, at this point, you haven't lived up to your expectations, to our expectations, and you're holding the ensemble back, and I need you to take the accountability of this and do it. It could be like, hey, look, I know this isn't going great so far, but look, stay with it. I gave you this part knowing it was going to be a huge challenge.
Yeah.
And so I'm willing to give it some more time. Just go about it this way. Don't worry about the tempo we're going. You go your tempo, you go your thing, and we'll meet somewhere in the end later on.
Cool.
I believe that you can do it. I know it's difficult. So there's two sides of that. It's not
Sure.
always a negative conversation, especially if you know going in that you're challenging a student specifically.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
That's cool. Good. All right. A couple more here. I spent thousands of dollars on Taylor Swift tickets. Then I wore an adult diaper to the concert so I wouldn't miss a single song. Why'd I do that?
Man, because you are a Taylor Swift fan, like super fan, in a way that I can't understand already. Yeah, man.
I think a lot of people in this world need to be asking someone why they did that, because that's happening for real. And then my last one, Louisiana native. I ate gumbo. Why'd I do that?
Because it's good, and you want the experience of Louisiana food, Southern Louisiana cuisine, and it was probably a good choice for you.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, there
for
you
sure.
go. There's my segment. Why'd I do that?
Excellent.
Thanks for your
Excellent.
answers.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
answer.
man.
All right, I got some questions for you. Is this a good idea or bad idea? And then you can expound upon your answer if you'd like. And this is a part of how my brain works. Wearing socks to bed, good idea, bad idea?
Bad idea. I don't like to wear socks.
It's
to bed.
rough, right?
Yeah.
Not a fan. All right, sneaking snacks into the movie theater.
Man, I get it. I used to do that. I don't do it now, but when I was in college, for sure I did it.
The proceeds from the book. You don't need to.
You get the funds from the book.
Now I finally don't need to do that. I mean, I get it, man. The prices are crazy. So I'm going to say it's a good idea, although I don't do it.
Okay, fantastic. All right, 4 toms, 7 cymbals on a drum set player kit, and he's like 10.
Bad idea. Bad idea. Maybe the focus is in the wrong place there. Yeah.
This is funny because I thought of this earlier before you talked about your kid with a 32-inch bass drum on a high school kid.
Probably a bad idea unless it's just a mammoth of a kid that's marching drum corps in the summer already, No, I don't think so.
Still
great
probably not a great idea.
I'm not sure how mechanic you are, but DIY or do it yourself, your brakes on your vehicle.
Bad idea. Instantaneously a bad idea.
Yeah, that's how I figured too.
It's a big risk there.
That's
I
a lot
would
of risk
say.
if you don't know what you're doing.
When I pressed the pedal, I wanted to work.
Yeah.
In general.
Yes.
Beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Yes.
All right, those are my that's my good idea, bad idea.
Yeah, that was easy.
Good job. All right. Well, John Bingaman, Mr. Bingaman, thank you so much for agreeing to come on to the podcast.
Absolutely.
And you were one of the first people when Shannon and I were, kind of dreaming this up, who to ask. And I was like, who do you recommend? He's like, get John on there.
Oh, man.
And one of the first people he said, and this is, it's proven to be a really great episode. Ton of substance, ton of content. We got to cover a lot about the middle school experience and the beginner experience that you have so much expertise in, and as well as the high school experience. So I think that our listeners and our viewers at home are really going to get a lot out of hearing your perspective. So thank you so much for being a guest.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, guys.
I always love having you. Thank you for being my friend.
Oh, absolutely, man. That's a
Thank
long
you for
time,
being-
man. Long time, man. So many great conversations.
Oh,
over the
yeah.
years, dude.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Speaking of sharing in that whole community thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Always.
Thank you so much.
All right.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you guys for tuning in and watching, and hope you enjoyed this episode. And like I like to remind everybody, we're on Apple Podcast and Spotify Podcast, as well as YouTube and Facebook. And we just recently started a TikTok, so please be sure to follow us on TikTok at Rhythmic Wavelengths. And thank you guys so much, and looking forward to the next episode. See ya.
Thanks,
Riley's
guys.
gonna lose fantasy football.
Wait, we can't close the episode with that. We'll see. We'll see you on the app.
Yeah.
You'll see me on the gridiron.
On the
The
gridiron.
gridiron.
Oh, okay.